Hey everybody, we have two videos critical of Vaush today that we're covering. Jolah saying, Vaush, are you really a leftist? And it's not what you think, right? It's not the way that I question Vaush's leftism. Jolah's coming at this from a very different perspective. We've also got BadMouse, and I haven't gotten to see the BadMouse, but it seems to be it seems to be making its waves, and I think that Vaush has like responded to it as well. So we got that. Here, I'm gonna try to put chat on screen, and that's not it. Oh god, I'm trying to remember how I had this working. Yeah, it's that one, not that one. Okay, there we go. So we got our chat on screen, and we got our like epic weird background. Like, I feel like I'm getting my back kind of exfoliated by this stuff. Do you feel it's like scraping up? It's like kind of like a nice exfoliate. It's a nice like little scrub back. Ah, yeah, that feels. It's like a massage. It's really nice, chat. Anyway, yeah. So let's take a look and see if the critique is on point. You know me. I don't just agree with somebody because they say Vaush bad. It matters to me why they think Vaush is bad, because obviously there's problems with Vaush. I've commented on them in the past, but I think that some of the critique of Vaush is wrong, and some of it is really critique just of the left dressed up as critique of Vaush, a la the Doomer Politics video from a while ago. So we're gonna see which side this stuff falls on. I've watched the Jolah video already. I have yet to see the BadMouse, but we're gonna get that going. Let's see, where are we? So we just need to get our little window capture. So we're gonna start off with Jolah because it's short, it's edited. Haven't really checked in with Jolah in a while. I am aware of Jolah. I think I've watched some Jolah. I know I've watched some Jolah stuff, but I don't really remember. All I remember is Jolah kind of being like a sock dim. But it appears that Jolah is really like really relying on those Canva thumbnails. So let's see, 1.9k views. Okay, this is the cloud I'm chasing today. 1.9k views. Good job, Irene. Good job. Come on, get to the video. Oh. For some reason, YouTube is taking forever. YouTube, why are you taking forever? I don't know. Hi, spooky background. Hi, impact suspect. Hi, Benjamin Sisko. Alright, sorry, we're just like taking a little second to... Yeah, there we go. It's slow. I don't know. I might have too many tabs open too.
Okay, so my overall...
That's always a possibility. That Irene has too many tabs open? Yes, I think so. I think the fuck so. That is a possibility I am willing to entertain. Okay, so the video is called Maybe Stop Calling Yourself a Socialist, Forehead. It's not really called Forehead. It's not, the forehead's not in there, because this isn't Twitch, right? This isn't Twitch, so we don't have the forehead. But we have everything else. That is not right. Okay. We need this one right here. Jolah.
Take was your label that you use should be a combination of what your core beliefs are, what the political utility is of that label, how are other people going to interpret that label.
So listen, I'm gonna say that this criticism strikes me as really weird, right? But I haven't watched Jolah's content, and it sounds like Jolah's got a particular like ideological model that maybe I'm not familiar with, right? He'll describe it a little bit later, right? And so, yeah, it might just be that I'm not a Jola viewer. Maybe Jola viewers. If there's any Jola viewers joining us today, right? Let me know. What is Jola's ideology? How does it work? If you can tell me a little bit about that, that might help us understand where Jola's going with this. Because I had a little bit of trouble following.
That really matters when we're choosing how to identify ourselves. That's why we choose different labels, is because other people are going to be hearing that. It's not just for self-identification. And also, it should be like your grouping. So if you're going to be in politics as this label, you're probably going to work with people who are a part of this label. Maybe if you're a socialist or a Democrat or a democratic socialist, of course you're going to be working with people on the left or whatever, but you have...
And that's an interesting thing. If a bunch of right-wingers come in and start calling themselves sock dems, then the definition of sock dem might shift slightly, right? Because, like, we've got two different things going on here. We've got theory, ideology, right? That's one place that we derive our label from. And the other place that we derive our label from is, like, what group we're in, like Jola's saying, right? And so, these things can kind of have effects. And we've seen before how some of these labels change over time. The most famous example, chat, is that libertarianism, when it started, was a leftist philosophy. It had nothing to do with, the libertarian, modern day libertarianism, right? It was more like libertarian socialism, right? And it just was talking about anti-authoritarian leftism, more or less, right? So definitions do shift over time depending on who's using them. Like, yeah, it's so Jola seems to be thinking it a little bit like branding, right? Which is not entirely wrong. I think it functions as branding, but we got to remember that we're doing more than business. We're doing more, hopefully, Jola and Vaush and everybody on the left, we're doing more than e-commerce. Okay? I hope so. I know some people aren't. I know some people are literally just, this is a market and here we go, right? But hopefully we're doing more than e-commerce, because if we're not, you can't trust us, right? You can't trust our words. You don't know what we believe. You don't know what we'll believe next year when something else is popular, right? It's harder to kind of trust a content creator who's hewing to the perverse incentives of capitalism, although we all do to some extent just to survive, right?
Have like a particular camp,
okay,
and
so
that camp should have unique ideas.
Utopian is how Jola phrased it.
To make that label as utility,
I'm just not sure what that means.
It makes sense, and I just don't think the label socialist today makes any sense, especially when you're standard for being a socialist and qualifying for those values or whatever. Just basically means you are a little bit more edgy
a side effect
about
of right-wing entryism,
democratic positions. So like higher taxes on the rich, worker representation on boards. Maybe you like worker co-ops, you want to push for those a little bit. Like that isn't really a socialist thing. That's like a little bit of a socialisty
I have to have like a friend
idea.
tie this, don't I?
In my opinion,
I can't tie this myself because I need two arms to tie.
Socialism.
Or I like
and in
do it with
the conversation of Vaush,
my
he
teeth,
doesn't
and I look
believe
like
socialism is even possible in his lifetime.
Look like I'm putting on a
so
tourniquet.
In my opinion, it would be more honest and more correct and more useful to call
that's not a good
yourself
look.
a like progressive or something that doesn't
Imagine what the
already
trolls
have
would do with that.
Generations of
like
baggage.
they clip it.
Especially
look
when
at
you
that.
don't even
Look
yourself
at that.
believe socialism is possible.
We told you
if
she
I
was on
wanted
drugs.
To, I could, and people told me like, "Oh, Vaush doesn't think social democracy is good enough. He isn't going to settle with that."
I'm on weed sometimes.
Well, I don't want to settle with
it's about
anything.
as exciting as I got.
If I wanted to choose my most idealistic label, I could call myself, and people in chat gave me this idea to call myself a utopian. Like I want a utopia. It's gonna all be perfect.
Utopia
food's
good.
gonna fall from the sky like Cloudy with a chance of meatballs, and I have an actual like economic plan to get us there. Eventually, I'm not happy with socialism or communism or anything. I'm actually gonna push past that because all of these systems just aren't good enough for me. So I can choose my most idealistic position, but in my opinion, that's not what your label should be.
Okay, chat. I get it. Joel is a Duganite. No.
Do you think explicitly socialist organizations like the DSA aren't worthwhile?
Put a zipper on the other side where nobody can see it.
Feels like the only type of organization.
Utopia sounds nice. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It does.
That has broader
Although, like, I don't know. The way he described it, I got an economic plan to get us there. Okay. That's nice.
Organizing outside of elections. No, I think democratic.
What could go wrong, chat? A utopian with a plan to get us to utopia. What could go wrong?
Socialism can make sense if you're going to organize as a third party within the Democratic Party. But no matter what, I don't like anybody who wants to make real political change. I don't like them having the label socialist. You carry so much baggage with that label. There is no reason you need to be a socialist, and there is no reason, instead of being a socialist, that you can't be a working class Democrat, that you can't be a pro-union Democrat, that you can't be a Democrat who advocates for higher taxes, that you can't be a Democrat who advocates for worker ownership or like worker representation on
Okay,
boards.
this is interesting.
Right now in this current system, and this was my big issue with the entire Vaush thing. Vaush.
So far, I'm getting. I feel like this is the recipient of some Vaush brainworms, right? And somehow Joel has taken in the brainworms, processed them, and now the brainworms have evolved, and he's spitting them back at Vaush, like blah blah blah. You like super capitalism? Yeah. How about stop calling yourself a socialist? How about stop? I mean, Vaush flirted with the idea of stopping calling yourself a socialist, right? Because of for this reason. You know what I'm gonna say though? Like, this is a boomer take, and obviously, Joel is not a boomer, but this is a boomer take, right? Seeing socialism as having negative associations with it, like that was true 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and going back till like the 30s, right? Ever since like the 30s, basically, ever since the, maybe even the 40s, like when the U.S. and the Soviet Union became geopolitical enemies, there's been a negative connotation to socialism, but that is changing. That is a thing of the past, and as you look into the younger generations, you're going to see a more positive association with socialism and a more negative association with capitalism. Jola, if socialism was such a toxic label, why is the right trying to co-opt it? Why is the right trying to co-opt socialism if it's so toxic? And my answer is it's not. It's not. Not sure where this take is coming from, right? The other place that this take could come from is existing in a sock-dim echo chamber, right? If you exist in the kind of Destiny, Vaush sort of sock-dim echo chamber where you kind of got, like, a lot of Twitch politics has pushed the Overton window to the right, has made left positions, radical positions, revolutionary positions absolutely toxic. You can't go with that. That's not seen as politics. Because to be politics, thanks to Vaush, you got to be riding with somebody. You got to be riding with Biden or you're riding with Trump, right? That is the mentality. And when we're stuck into that mentality of electoralism, not that I'm saying that harm reduction is always a bad idea, but when you get so into it that you're like, hairy legs, yeah, Joe, that's fucked up. That's fucked up. And this was my criticism with riding with Biden. I say that if you're gonna ride with Biden, you do it like Marty McFly. That's the dude's name from Back to the Future. You hitch a ride with Biden's car. You don't get in the car with Biden. Because remember, if you're a leftist, you're getting off at a different place than Biden. Biden's driving here. You're taking your skateboard there, okay? Remember that, because it's really easy to get sucked into this. This is what electoral politics does to people. It brainworms this. This is what Twitch politics does to people. It brainworms them. It gives you an artificial perception of who you're reaching out to. And I feel, and again, Jola, I apologize. I could have gotten you totally wrong. If you want to watch this, if you're watching this, if you want to correct me on anything, I am all ears, okay? I could have totally got this wrong. But I think that what you're doing is you're appealing to a subset of people. I think that you've got this idea in your head that DGG sock dims are most people, and they're not. That's the online left. That's at least a component of the online left, and a questionable whether we even call it left. Now, when you say, like, should Vaush call himself a socialist, that's a good question. But I would say, for a different reason, that what Joel is saying, it's bad branding. It's a bad look. It's bad optics. I'm saying it doesn't seem descriptive of where Vaush is going. It doesn't seem descriptive of who Vaush is appealing to, right? It doesn't seem like he's really in it the same way that other, you know, socialist activist streamers and content creators are. The problem is the label is pushed on people. The label linked to the idea of higher taxes. Yeah. Worker ownership and regulated markets. That is the thing, is that like people are getting a set. They're seeing SOCDEM policies, weak SOCDEM policies, mind you, if you're in the United States, right? Because our SOCDEM, you know, our regulation is weak, our social safety net is weak. Everything that we do that is socialist is super weak sauce, right? So, you know, it's a very pared down version of it, and we're getting it sold to us as that is socialism. Now, if that doesn't work because it's not strong enough, because it doesn't fundamentally address the power differential at the root of the problem of capitalism, then people are going to see it and they're going to say socialism didn't work. That's the danger of weak sauce socialism. That's the danger of weak sauce leftism. Vaush is a lib. He should call himself a lib.
Identically.
Well, that's what Jolah wants, ironically enough, but for a different reason.
That you could find in this current system. Him being a socialist literally doesn't matter. The label socialist is great for the online stuff, but it literally doesn't matter. Especially when you have no standards and I understand his argument.
By the way, chat, I'll try to get to all your comments in chat. If it gets too busy, you can always super chat me and get my attention really quick that way, because I need money. I don't know if you know this, but like, I like to eat food. I like to stay in I have material conditions to attend to, so you'll definitely get my attention if you super chat me, and that's turned back on now thanks to the fact that I finally put all my information back into YouTube. They need a lot of info from you tax wise, right?
He wants everybody
because guess what, it's a job. That's why they need your tax information. It's a job, and it's not a very good paying job, but it is a job.
Be a socialist, so he wants the barrier to
They're not active yet. That's wild. Okay, I think
low.
I might have to turn them
That's
on.
That's why he has his take on Hassan. He wants it to be very chill to be a socialist. For example, many Democrats and Republicans, most voters vote in a partisan manner. People don't have really complex thinking patterns when they go to the ballot office. So Vaush wants electoral power for socialists. So the reason he doesn't want to say, like, hey, Hassan should be held to a higher standard because he's a socialist is because Vaush wants a wine mom, eventually, to say, yeah, I'm not that into politics, but I'd probably be a socialist. He wants Democrat right now, or he wants what is considered to be like a progressive right now, to eventually be a socialist, which doesn't make much sense to me. Because if you dissolve the word socialism to mean, oh, I'm for higher taxes, I'm for more worker representation, I'm for unions, if that's what socialist means anyway, what is the difference between a social democrat and a socialist? What, you tweet different? You make different YouTube videos? Like, honestly, what is the difference between those? I know why the DSA does what they do. They want to say we are the third party within the Democratic Party. They're going to get political power through those means. I still don't like the label socialist.
Okay, Chad.
But in general, why call yourself a socialist and not just a working class Democrat? Why not be the working class coalition within the Democratic Party? Why do people need to hold on to the socialist label? Why do they need to hold on to a label that holds so much baggage? There is literally no necessity to this. I don't understand, unless if somebody in chat disagrees with me. Is there a necessity? Like, do we need to have the label socialist attached to everything we freaking do? Or whenever I have to talk about Bernie Sanders, do I need to go through why the USSR wasn't actual socialism? Although it was left-wing principles gone authoritarian. It 100% was. You can't just say it was right-wing. Every time I have to sell a policy to somebody, I have to I have to do the heavy lifting of saying why socialism isn't bad. Are you kidding me? Do you know how dumb and like, oh my god, it's so
okay. So super chat should be allowed now. I'm not fishing for one. Like, I'm not saying you have to give me one, but like, if somebody could just confirm that the button's there, that would be awesome.
Directionless. It's so pointless. Like, it makes me so upset because we can be advocating for these popular policies, but we're being held down by this reluctance to modernize this approach.
So what Joel is saying is there's a lot of SOCDEM policies that are extremely popular, right? That when you poll people, they will say, yes, 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 all day. I want that. I want that. I want that, right? Even people that are slightly right-wing will say yes, right? And so he thinks that we're not getting this because it's attached to the name socialist. And when you say it like, do you want this? They say yes. And you say, oh, but it's socialist. They say, oh, socialism bad. I don't know if there's really that much socialism bad anymore. I'm not sure. What do you think, chat?
Like, what does socialism even mean? Like, nobody in America, no politician in America, even Bernie Sanders, who calls himself a democratic socialist, nobody is advocating for full worker ownership of anything. They aren't able to. We aren't at that place since this, like, there just is no pragmatic utility to it. What's the most social?
So what Joel's arguing for is a more pragmatic politics, a politics that concerns itself with electoral politics, what can be done right now, what can be done using only the pressure of the electoral system, right? Rather than any other pressure that workers could exert. And like there's a point in that, like, yeah, we're not in a good place in the US, right? We don't have strong unions, we don't have a lot of leverage. That is changing a little bit. There are more strikes, there are more people willing to work, there are more people feeling the pressure. 2 months of Halloween. Oh my god. Oh wait, I don't have the new there we go. Sorry, that was the oh my god, I'm trying to figure out where the there we go. I guess that works. Yeah. Sorry.
Socialist thing Bernie Sanders ever said. He wants
Super
to
chats are
national,
active.
or
Okay.
he wants to have more national.
And I'm looking into memberships too. I don't know how many of you would be interested in that, but I'll look into it and see if there's anything. I guess you get like you get early access to stuff. You can get, you know what I mean. There's some perks to membership. So if people are interested in that, I'll look into that too. But for now, we'll just do it through super chats again.
Like energy grids.
It's been a
he
while.
said that once in his Green New Deal plan. That's probably the most like socialist-y thing. Should we also get rid of the term feminism because it also has a lot of baggage? No, we should get rid of the term toxic masculinity and
Okay, yeah. This is interesting. So like, right, he's not somebody that's like, you know, there are some people that would say, okay, like so since feminism sounds to the fragile male ear like what we're doing is we're going to put the needs of women above your needs, right? We're going to forget about you. We're going to pretend like you're okay where you are. We're just going to be like, let's max women, right? And some people don't get on board because that they use that as an excuse, right? So Joel's not saying like don't call it feminism anymore because that some people will say, you know, you should call it gender equality or something like that, or like come up with some new name for it and some new branding, right? It's he's not arguing for that, but he is arguing for this a similar thing on socialism, right? Feminism also comes with a lot of baggage. Yeah, it does, but in general, the baggage it comes with is, I mean, I don't know. Actually, I do think this is a good point by Sassafras here. I hope you don't mind me saying your name, Sassafras. I think that was an excellent point.
term white privilege. We should stop using those terms and relying on those terms because those have an automatic negative connotation to them.
I don't think the problem is that there are no strong unions. Most of the unions are just pro-capitalist. That is true. The unions underwent a co-optation during the period from like probably the 40s to the 60s or no, to the 70s really. Like there's films about this, right? And what you're talking about is that the union leadership is often seems to have interests that aren't in line with the membership, right? And that's a problem. That makes it really hard for people to trust their union. That leaves the union open for criticism. So what happens is that like the unions have a tough time fighting. Capitalism is huge. Capitalism is hard to fight. So the union bosses might get tempted to say, hey, can we kind of make a deal here? Can we kind of work with each other? Can we kind of like have a less adversarial relationship? And the capitalists are like, oh, hell yeah, we can do all these things and more. And maybe they're not seeing on the ground level what those compromises affect, how that actually comes across to the union membership, right? And so then when the union does less for its members are more open to criticism, saying all they're doing is taking a bit out of your paycheck. All they're doing is cutting into your income. You don't need this. There, you know, and there's probably some truth to the like the leadership of some unions being, you know, not trustworthy, right? And that has resulted in people just pulling out of unions in the United States, and probably further empowered the, you know, the co-optation.
Feminism doesn't have a negative connotation to most people. There is no history
Pragmatic utopianism.
of like that doesn't hold the same weight. If you think that's comparable, I would strongly disagree. Yes, the polls on socialism are becoming more popular in the U.S. over time, but I really don't care about those polls. Those polls are weak.
Toxic masculinity and white privilege both have meaning. Oh yeah, that's what he was comparing it to. Toxic masculinity. Yeah. So here's the deal with that. Like, right? Like, people hear that. This is really similar to the land back thing, right? People hear land back and they're like, oh, so you want me to get off my, you want me to leave, like I lose my house. And it's like, no. Look at the land back movement. They're talking about taking over areas that have been given to corporations to build pipelines that poison people's groundwater. You know, like that's what their goal is. That's what their target is. That's what they're looking at. Like, that's what you'll see in land back stuff, right? But people hear it and they go somewhere else with it. When people hear toxic masculinity, they hear, oh, so you think men are toxic, you think we're bad, you think that, and it's like, no. I think that there is a negative element to the culture that you live in, and I think that negative element probably adversely impacts you as well, right? But they don't hear that. They just hear toxic masculinity. Oh, so males are toxic, right? Yeah, so that's his argument there, and it doesn't seem like a much better one. Pro-capitalist unions are still better than no worker organization. Yeah, similar to the land back thing. Yeah. It's too many people not wanting to do research, wanting to think that they're smarter than they are. And if you just like you don't like just logic out something like land back. You should actually look at like who's pushing land back and what they're asking for, what they want, what their goals are, right? And once you do that, you sort of see that there's nothing nobody's getting evicted over land back, right? Except for maybe corporations that are trying to make money off of poisoning people's water supplies, right?
Those polls are very weak. Vaush basically only cares about optics, and all his arguments are filtered through that lens. He doesn't care about optics because his arguments suck. The way he was talking yesterday, it really was so wordy. Do you know those rappers who are made fun of for being like overly complex with their rhyme schemes? Does anybody know, like, I guess Eminem is the one that's actually decent at it, but there's a lot of YouTube rappers that do this, where they make everything sound really complex for literally no reason. It's the whole meme with, I'm a lyrical, spiritual miracle through my stereo, so venereal. It's hysterical. It's a miracle. The way I get tranquility and ability and the skill I see. Like, they have these words rhyming. It's like, or when Eminem did, that's an awfully hot coffee pot. Like, there's no reason for what Vaush was saying. Using this condescending language, using this verbiage.
I wanted to clap back at this, but actually I can't. Vaush does do this. Vaush flexes, like Professor Flowers and I were talking about, Vaush flexes his bachelor's, and it's kind of cringe, and it doesn't help. That being said, I do want to guard against a imperative of oversimplification, right? Because that lends itself to reductionism, and we've got too much reductionism already, right? We've got too many concepts that actually do have some nuance, that do have some complexity, right? Look at intersectionality. How many fucking people get intersectionality? Like, right? Like, even just the simple concept of intersections, like, what is intersectionality about? What are the intersections? What does this describe, right? People often don't understand this, and they'll try to put a reductive, like, definition to it, right? And that's when you end up with things like the weird moral panic about critical race theory.
That
you shouldn't oversimplify, but language is meant to communicate. Vaush tends to deliberately talk at a register above his opponents. Huh, good point. Hey, I didn't think about that, I am Dave. Yeah, so there's a debate strategy angle to this too, right? Whereas if you can be perceived as more educated, more grounded in the subject matter that you're talking about than your opponent, sometimes you win. Arguments be damned. So yeah, there's also a strategic element to what Vaush is doing, and since Vaush's medium is debates, it only makes sense that that he'd add a little of add a little, you know, kind of looking down at your opponent, you know, which can cut both ways, right? If you sound like an academic blowhard, if you sound like an English major, you might not succeed in convincing people. But if you can do it in a way that touches people's passion, and even if they don't understand everything that you said, they get the concept. They get where you're going with it because you're actually in line with what you're feeling, right? And I think that's the part of socialism, the socialist tradition that we've lost. You look at people like Joe Hills, right? You look at people, you know, the labor tradition in the United States is full of people that were appealing to emotion, that were appealing to people's desire for unity, that were appealing to people's like, I mean, you know, there's power in our union, like, right? That kind of shit has a real pull to it, and I think we've lost that. I think we've bought into the Ben Shapiro thing too much of like, okay, let's just like go through this logically, my dude, right? No, we can't just do this logically. You have to show people the potential for a better world, and you do that by communicating with passion. If you're not passionate about this shit, what are you doing?
Is
Possibly just taking up space.
sounds condescending by nature.
I noticed
because
this a
he's
lot
using-
because I watch Destiny as well. Destiny will elevate when he's up against people who can go at that level, but he lowers his register. Oh, lowers his register. Okay, okay, I see what you're saying. Huh, interesting. Cool ideas. I am the Dave. Oh, I am the Dave. Sorry.
a bunch of big words for no reason, just to like it sounds like he's trying to just sound smart. And I know
I mean, yeah, Joel's not entirely wrong here.
this is a meme from Destiny's Twitter, but this meme holds true.
Vaush talks like a walking thesis paper. Yeah, maybe more like a walking 5-paragraph essay.
I washed around
Oh,
half
so much
of that
shade,
debate
so much
from
shade.
last night.
Hey, look, I'm not trying to throw shade at Vaush. Listen, I didn't finish my graduate work, so I'm not gonna like raise myself above Vaush. I got the same level of education as he does, and probably in a less applicable field, all things considered.
Yeah, like logic. I watched around half of that debate last night. And this is how he sounded. This is how Vaush sounded.
Arbitravity. Is arbitravity even a... I drew you in when I mentioned intersectionality. Yeah, I know that's a bad word in some parts of the online left, right? If you go over to Twitch, that's a really bad word. Twitch is a fucking dumpster fire. Twitch is sliding wholeheartedly to the right because all the supposed leftists there are career-minded rather than ideology-minded. They're too caught up in the clout game to notice that they're being puppeteered by the right wing on Twitch. To notice, like, wait, that creator Discord that you're a member of, who is the admin of that? A Lauren Southern mod? Huh? Who's working there? What forces are behind this? Like, you know, like, do you wonder why when you go in there and you propose a leftist idea, do you wonder why you get shut down so fast? That's the idea. Intellectual capture has been achieved by the right wing on Twitch, and that is why I'm not going to be on Twitch as much, but I'm still going to be talking about Twitch. I'm still going to be criticizing Twitch, mostly from YouTube.
Your entire point is spite driven. What? Your inability to understand utility.
Algorithms feed off the conflict.
Oh, I can't say that word. I know it's arbitrary. See, I'm too dumb. I'm too dumb. Oh, I'm not. God, I'm too dumb. How do you say that word? Somebody put the phonetic spelling in chat for me. Your inability to understand utility. He's like trying to sound deep and trying to sound a lot more complex than he actually
I don't even know if that's a real word.
is. Making these points. And if you
arbitrariness, right? Isn't that the word?
Yourself a socialist, like.
And listen. I have heard. Okay, so listen. I don't know if I want to criticize Vaush about this or not, but like, I have noticed that like, a lot of times when he's using big words, he'll get them slightly wrong, and his audience just won't notice. Nobody in the audience notices, right? And like, to somebody that's engaged in intellectual pursuits and uses those words more regularly, it sounds cringe. I kind of think it's a little elitist to think that way. I don't want to look down at Vaush for his malapropisms, because to me, the fact that Vaush will say a word and not be able to pronounce it correctly, it tells me that he's reading. And I don't look down at somebody for reading. He's reading and he's coming across words that he hasn't heard pronounced before, right? That's where that comes from. So in the past, I might have, taken a few opportunities to dunk on Vaush for his lack of command of, sometimes he'll take two big words and he'll kind of combine them together in one, and I'm like, I can deconstruct like where he got that from, and I'll kind of laugh at it, but I realize I'm laughing alone, so I don't want to actually dunk on him for that, because like I'm kind of dunking on myself as a bit of a nerd in doing that.
I need everybody to ask themselves, what does it mean to be a socialist in America today? If you call yourself a socialist, what pragmatic utility does that have? What does it really mean? And why is that better than calling yourself a social democrat? Because I think you should call yourself what you actually are, participating in the current political system. I think everybody has an ideal future post-scarcity where everybody is living in harmony and everybody owns a piece of society, and everybody has...
I worry about that. I worry about what he just said, okay? Like, so we're going to consider ourselves what we vote for, not what we want, right? I get the point that you don't want to spend all your time up in theory land, up in concept, up in, well, ironically enough, utopian like thought, right? Where you're thinking of like, years in advance, years in the future, maybe we could do this, right? I get that you don't want to waste your efforts on that. You want to look at the here and now. But I do think that these labels create a social group around them. And if you choose a label that is defined by electoral politics, then you call yourself a Democrat or a social democrat if you're, supporting the DSA. And I kind of think that like is going to tend to marinate you. I don't know if you know this, chat, but when you're around people, when you're around a group of people, and that group of people has a certain way of thinking, the more you're around it, the more you'll adopt that way of thinking. Now that can be useful because then you can get to know somebody's way of thinking, and you can make an argument, say, to a DGGer that'll make sense to a DGGer, whereas somebody like me that doesn't spend a lot of time in, Destiny's community might not be able to do that. I get that there's a benefit to that, but there's also a danger, and the danger is that you get intellectually captured by that. And it's easier than you think. And I've seen it happen over and over again, and I'm so fucking on guard for that. I've seen this happen to friends of mine, right? Who spent time in right-wing communities, for various reasons, and have gradually become right-wing themselves. And it scares the fuck out of me, chat, because I know that as much as I think that I'm grounded and I'm based and I'm speaking from the heart and I'm speaking the truth, if I had to hang out in, Twitch politics for a while, I don't know. I might be susceptible to some of that garbage too.
Some type of vision of the future. Why label yourself as the most idealistic
He called Louis Farrakhan Louise, and I died laughing. Yeah.
version of your thought, especially when you're very pessimistic about the prospect of socialism ever working, as Vaush
You are a narco-communist and out about it. That is to say, we are on the side of whoever's alleviating human suffering.
said many times. He doesn't even believe socialism.
I think people are too desperate to belong in a box. I've never known anyone who is purely left or purely right. Huh.
Never going to work in America in his lifetime. So why, if you don't think this is something that's possible within the...
Well, I mean, we are dealing with social constructions here. That being said, I think some of the beyond ideology shit is kind of cringe, right? It's just an excuse for, like, right-wing entryism a lot of times, right? That you don't want to be too left, and that you can kind of... It's really easy, and this is what Vaush does all the time. He punches left. He punches left to get his bona fides with the right, and that's really dangerous. That cultivates an audience that, while calling itself, left, is actually slightly right, I think that what right and left are labels. Labels meaning handles, right? And so there is ideology, like that for lack of a better term, at least intellectually, ideology is a thing, right? I don't think that ideology is entirely a social construction, but our labels for ideology are socially constructed. They're constructed by what handles are most useful in the time that we're in. Of seeing, and it's a good point that the terms right and left were set so many years ago and really had more to do with our disposition towards a monarchy than our disposition towards an economic system. Since Karl Marx cast feudalism, or cast capitalism as a evolved state of feudalism, right? Like as a move forward from feudalism, and socialism as a move forward from capitalism, it kind of causes that like model to be drawn up of right and left. It makes so in other words, the model was still useful in Marx's time, and it's still, I think, somewhat useful in our time. But you're right that being overly caught up in labels is probably not great.
Next 100 years, why call yourself that? We don't need that magical word. It's not a religion. I don't take political labels typically because I really don't care. I really do not care about capitalism or socialism or social democracy or whatever. I care about general progressivism when it comes to civil liberties and when it comes to fighting for people power. And by people power, I don't mean I mean policies that benefit people
Okay,
and
so
not
yeah.
corporations.
People power meaning like what's in the interest. So there is like a leftist core at the heart of Jolah, right? In that belief, I think that when he's saying people power, he's talking about the material conditions of the workers, right? I think that's what he means. I'm not sure about this like giving up of right and left and like how that kind of pairs out. Like I said, I'd have to listen to more of his content, and I'm not going to make a final judgment about this until I do, because I get the feeling that Jolah's got a very particular model of ideology, and I don't want to critique it without fully understanding it.
And representation for
Sounds kind of liberal. Yeah.
people's issues.
I mean, listen, Hamish, I'm right there with you. I'm just trying to steel man. I'm trying to steel man as hard as I can,
Even when people
being a good
can't
bean.
represent those issues on their own. Even when it comes to...
I don't know when it happened. I think it was somewhere in the 2010s, but at some point left and right stopped being descriptors of political ideology. Became... yeah, so that's right. That's a good point. So like I think I said this before, in addition to being descriptors of ideology, these labels are also descriptors of social groups, right? And I think that's what you're getting at. I am the Dave, right? And this becomes problematic. This becomes problematic when our ideology is confused with a social group. You've seen this happen where Vaush let a literal monarchist into his midst, right? Into the left, right? And just like, I think he thought it was like a meme ideology. We're going to be covering her later on, the VTuber, right? The monarchist VTuber. Because she's come up against Bad Empanada of all people. Bad Empanada is taking her to task, and we're gonna see who we what we think about that, right? But like you do have examples of real like entryism. Like a lot of the people that Vaush works with are like fundamentally right wing. A lot of the people that he needs to work with to keep his debates going, to be able to go into like a right-wing server and do an AMA and get some like hard right people to come at him, has caused him to sort of make alliances to bring people into his friend group who are so far from left. And I think this is a huge problem for like online leftism. This has absolutely destroyed Twitch. Twitch was a community that was an outgrowth of BreadTube. It was decidedly left, and it had like a radical flair to it when it started out. That has been eroded by DGG, by Vaush's slide to the right, and by the aggregation of power by certain groups that remain unseen, right? By the low-key aggregation of power by people who pretend to be without ideology, but are actually, if you look at them, fundamentally right-wing. And that's why you have so much acceptance of Lauren Southern on Twitch, despite the fact that people will look at the Great Replacement and call it what it is, which is
party politics. Like I said, Bernie Sanders One of the hardest things for me selling him to other people in the primary was he's not a real Democrat. He's a socialist. He's too radical for me. If you present ideas in a way that doesn't seem radical, those ideas are more likely to take place and more likely to seem commonplace. If anybody wants to argue with me, or if you know any content creators who would disagree with me, I'd be glad to have a conversation.
Joel, I would be glad to have a conversation, but I feel like I need to watch more of your content so that I'm meeting you on an equal level. I don't want to straw man you. You know, I don't want to argue with something that's not your actual take. I want to understand more where you're coming from. And since your ideology is not one I have experienced yet, I'm going to kind of like, you know, I'm going to withhold my judgment a little.
About that.
Okay, so that's this video. And next we have BadMouse, who, I don't know, chat, when's the last time you watched a BadMouse video? When is the last time you watched a BadMouse video? I think BadMouse has been gone for a while, right? It's me! It's me, BadMouse. Okay, so BadMouse made 2 videos about this. Little bit more popular than Jola's video, but Jola's just kind of starting out. BadMouse has been a thing for a decent amount of time now, so makes sense. All right, yeah. 1 month ago was the okay. So he's got a video of why did I drop off the face of the earth. He's got like old video playlist, and then we come to Vaush and the haunting specter of baby leftism. Let's take a look at this.
Nature of modern day Zionism, then I would recommend.
Oh my god.
Doesn't have.
I have to say that even I was under the impression, despite everything I've seen of him, that Vaush, or Ian, might have at least understood some general basics about racism. After piling through 3 hours of his debate with Professor Flowers, that turned out to be wrong.
I mean, how can a person be an
So
oppressor?
let's just go over BadMouse really quickly for anybody that doesn't know. My understanding of BadMouse is that he has been all over the map ideologically. If there is a leftist tendency, BadMouse has been that, right? And he even addresses that in one of his videos, right? He's been all over the map. He's had a lot of, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, you know.
Because of their race.
But obviously, some people see it as a reason to distrust BadMouse. So.
The millions of white people in South Africa, like, individually oppress all the black people there. And I can tell you from my experiences online, there are a lot of black people who are pretty goddamn racist. I think it's kind of silly to pretend that there aren't black people who just are kind of shitty to white people in a way that doesn't have a sort of institutional bias behind it. There is nothing about being white that inherently makes you more racist. Over here in America, there are a lot of black people that are racist against white people. It's...
Oh my god, Vaush, I didn't even think about this, but the pushback on that one, there's nothing about being white that makes you inherently more racist. It's inherently more susceptible to racism. And aside from the power, aside from the power structure, right? Aside from systemic racism, you also have okay, so here's how it works. If I'm marginalized and you're not marginalized, I have to internalize your perspective to stay safe, to be able to deal with the world around me. If I'm part of a marginal group and you're not, I have to kind of have a model of your thinking inside my brain, taking up RAM and analyzing everything. As a trans person, I have to look at things through the eyes of a cis person. I have to always be like, okay, what does this look like to a cis person, right? I have to do that. A cis person does not have to do that with me. A cis person does not have to put themselves in my shoes, often cannot put themselves in my shoes. You know, a white person, same thing with black people. There's no imperative there to understand. So I would say that being white predisposes one to ignorance of the actual material conditions of black people, just like being cis predisposes one to an ignorance of the lives of trans people. Now that doesn't mean that for sure you are, because if you go out of your way to educate yourself, and the biggest thing you can do, the best textbook to consult, is the lived experience of somebody who is black, the lived experience of somebody who is trans, right? If you do that work, then maybe you're not maybe you're fine. Maybe you're fine. That's possible. I don't want to make an essentialized argument that all white people are this, but I will say that we have to do a lot of work that we're not necessarily compelled to do. There's no imperative for us to do this work in order to eliminate the kind of ignorance which will allow us to become the willing vessel for structural racism, which Vaush is exemplifying wonderfully in this debate.
Not like one tribe ruled America. The tribes that ruled the Americas before we came here
there's a bunch of
conquered
different
other
tribes.
tribes
There's a bunch of different groups of
beforehand.
people.
So does America belong to the tribe that owned it last, or the first tribes that we can ever anthropologically determine control the territory?
Lua has already done her own response. I'm not going to pretend that I know everything or speak for her, but I had some time on my hands, and this debate really annoyed me. So, I just wanted to try and talk about a few things. What can I say? I'm an unpredictable man. The reaction that Ian and his fans exhibited when faced with the general assertion...
Wait, when they were doing anarchist Minecraft, you mean like 2B2T, or were they actually trying to like illustrate some anarchist principle in Minecraft?
And that it's not your right to dictate the
'Cause,
terms
like,
of decolonization to the...
One of my biggest regrets is that in the 2B2T video, I didn't specifically say Minecraft anarchy servers have nothing to do with the real world ideology of anarchy, right? That they're not connected. I didn't say that, and I should have, right? Because some people are gonna, when they hear anarchy server, they're gonna be like, that's not what anarchy's like, stealing stuff from everybody, lobbying people's houses, griefing everything. That's not what that's the right wing straw man version of anarchism, and that sucks, right? And they're gonna say, no comment, chick, you're highly irresponsible. Like, you call yourself an anarchist, and yet clearly you don't understand the concept, right? I kind of regret not saying something about that.
Colonized is actually not too unfamiliar to me, because it reminds me
Yeah,
of,
not that kind of
well,
anarchism.
me.
Okay. So when we talk about an anarchy server in Minecraft, what we're talking about is a server with, like, very little rules, very little moderation, that sort of thing, right?
As a young leftist, I felt particularly uncomfortable by this man. Because if you know, Malcolm X didn't take his fools gladly. He didn't give a shit and he took no prisoners, because fundamentally he wanted autonomy for his own people, and he didn't want that to be dictated by whites. His manner and content of speaking always made me, as a white dude, feel a bit, I don't know, he says such hostile stuff, he doesn't care about white people, this doesn't work, we gotta work together. Yet, as time went on, I started connecting some of the stuff that he said to the stuff that I see in real life. And I started to understand a little bit better the mindset of minorities. I started listening to more of his work and other people's like Frantz Fanon and James Baldwin. And eventually my opinion on Malcolm X turned from a cowering "eee" to one of, is what it is, right on. Because I understood, I guess, my place in the world. I understood, yeah, I've got it pretty well off, to be honest, and I got the...
So just so you know, this video is entitled Baby Leftism, and I think that's where he's going to go with this, that he had a more childlike conception of leftism, that like, in which, Malcolm X became this boogeyman, and that as he matured and as he learned more, that this, like, faded away, and he understood that the reason that Malcolm X existed was because of the kind of oppression that the black people felt. It wasn't a small how do I describe this? Like some of the stuff that he would have seen as a little extra was actually warranted.
When it comes to
and obviously not everything that Malcolm X said falls into that rubric. I hope nobody thinks I'm saying that.
Your sense of self, all of the pedantic consistencies never really matter much in the long term. What you want first and foremost is to exist as a human being.
Right back.
I think people got this same anxious, almost offended feeling when No Name said that she didn't want Whitey following her on Twitter anymore. No Name, you gotta work together, No Name. Woke segregation, Fred Hampton. Yes, because acclaimed black communist rapper No Name has totally never heard of Fred Hampton. Take a hint. It is this very milquetoast, baby's first political education mindset that appears to be very common these days, especially amongst white American lefties, but is also across the pond as well, who seem to think that it can all just be solved by what I can only describe as vague gesturing. Let's all work together. And that's not how it works. You can't just claim, yeah, integration, and then by some magic formula, we all just get along. I remember a certain black communist state his absolute disdain for when white pinkos come into black spaces during and after actions and hand out flyers for their org under the banner of, yeah, let's unite, but then are never ever seen again. Do you understand that that doesn't really seem to fit, right? There's something very performative about it. It's very much unite, but on our terms. Hence why many socialist people of colour prefer the company of other people like them, even if their views don't exactly line up, than with white socialists. And it only really takes a quick look at Ian's repertoire to see why that might be.
So I'm gonna go a little bit hard on her. I don't give a fuck if you don't like being around white people.
He's got this incredibly juvenile, gamer bro, populist understanding of race, amongst many other things, that appears to give off a progressive tone, but in reality it just feels mute and hollow, not to mention egoistic. It's not a reactionary perspective to want to not talk to white leftists. It's you being arrogant and starting with the position that I am right, everybody come to me. Oh, they're not coming to me? Well then in that case, they must be reactionary. But of course it's not just Ian, it's systemic. And I think part of this comes down to the way we're often taught about topics like nationalism in school and the media, by just simply showing the white boogeyman, and not understanding it as a very serious thing that has a lot of complexities and duality to it. If you watch Flower's video, she explains there that there were once various people groups across the contiguous United States who are now just known under the simple moniker of Native American or American Indian. That's because of history. History, power dynamics, and minoritization. These forces created a shared struggle amongst those people, a shared experience, if you will, that coalesced these groups as a nation. Importantly, they still exist. They still exist there, and most importantly, there's somebody else there who isn't part of that group for a plethora of reasons. Ask yourself the reason why we call people who live in Britain British, rather than, say, Brittonic. It's because the Brittonic tribes physically don't exist as a concept anymore. They've been absorbed into the dustbin of history through conquest, miscegenation, and the lack of a dominant power to contrast with. It doesn't justify any such horrific acts of history, but it's simply a fact. They are now gone as a people, and they can't really be reconciled. You attempt to try and revive an ancient culture as your identity. You can try. Even if you trace your ancestry back over 2,000 years, it doesn't work, because there isn't an equivalent dynamic involved. So you end up looking like a weirdo, and not the oppressed. Self-appointed druids are not under attack in this country. That's what it's all about. Who's being affected now? Not some stupid red ice media level discussion on who owned it last. So when these groups form as a nation, their inherent experience, in contrast to the other, takes on a fundamentally different character. Let me ask you another question. Name me a white nationalism,
Hey, Sonny.
or an English
Meow, meow.
nationalism, or a French, Aussie, German, American nationalism that fundamentally cements its beliefs as left-leaning. You can't. That's because the inherent nature of majority powerful nations leans itself towards vulgar characteristics. Like spoilt toddlers getting their toys taken away, they lash out at the slightest
pretty
glimpse
good.
of fairness. You go to a
So,
country
chat.
like Ireland, however, a former colony.
Can anybody voice for me I don't know that much about BadMouse. All I know is that BadMouse has been all over the ideological map. What is it about BadMouse that people don't like, right? Because I've always gotten when BadMouse's name comes up, I always get this overwhelming sense of people being sus, and I'm not sure exactly what is sus about BadMouse exactly. Can anybody help me understand?
And notice how the nature...
I'm a little bit of a baby leftist myself in terms of not having been involved in the online left much prior to 2019.
Of Irish nationalism or republicanism,
Or, I mean, yeah,
historically carried with it
in terms of content creation.
a very different standing to that of its neighbour. Go even further down the rung, there are even more pressing issues that need solving, and thus the nature of these groups fold themselves towards solving those present injustices. Whether a group actually calls itself a nationalism or not, it doesn't take away the very material reality that emerges when one is of a shared culture, history, or language. If you're a white American, you can watch all manner
so
of
far this
American
sounds
media
pretty
and get
based.
that funny feeling
But again,
inside.
I don't know
That
BadMouse's
same
history
feeling
entirely.
cannot always be said for others. It comes as a great shock to discover that when Gary Cooper was killing off the Indians and you were rooting for Gary Cooper, that the Indians were you. You live in a country in which the dominant hegemony represents and glorifies people like you. And whether you disagree with that hegemony or not, just saying that doesn't matter. You're still influenced by it. That's why the calls of people to say, oh, it's nothing, doesn't really matter because you still have a home to go back to. You still have a nation by which you can rest on. In summary, status quo nationalism almost always
So it's literally because of his ideological shift?
bends to the right. But in oppressed ones, you get a mix.
I see. So it really, it sounds like it really is that, like, his, changing belief system.
I will say, though, that even a vulgar trend from an oppressed nationalism is not and never the same as its polar opposite. Take a very known example. The nation of
So he turned hard on BreadTube, okay, but like in a Caleb Maupin sense, or like in a, do you know what I mean? Like there's reasonable critiques of BreadTube, and there's unreasonable critiques.
Islam is, of course, well known for its highly homophobic, sexist, and frankly weird views. I bet even Ian might label them as racist towards whites. But in their position as an oppressed group, they are still in the mission of helping black self-determination. Be that in prisons, drug rehab, and housing and employment projects. Those are all things that speak to the people they're talking to, and just as a matter of fact, they often do it a lot better than many communist groups in the United States. So, yeah, think about that. So that is a very easy way.
Oh, he came to think of it as a scam designed to make money rather than anything meaningful. Some people took that badly. I could see that. I mean, that definitely goes on. I wouldn't want to like cast a super like I wouldn't want to paint with too broad of a brush. But yeah, I think that careerism is a huge stumbling block to leftist content creation. That often where leftist content creation content creationists. Content creators, when leftist content creators fall down, a lot of times it's due to that kind of the perverse incentives that capitalism puts before you, right? The intellectual capture by the right that we've seen on Twitch, and yeah.
Of understanding why there is a difference between black and white nationalism. And how
It is the center of the recent Hassan drama, after all.
the
yeah.
common reduction of it into a vile mass of in-group and out-group dynamics just doesn't hold up. Because there are very genuine claims made by one group that simply doesn't compare to the other. It's not all relative like some seem to think it is. Such claims are decidedly liberal.
Wait, hold on. No, they're not. Gay people in Saudi Arabia are just a product of Western degeneracy that feeds in through global
I
media.
gotta say, it's a really well put together video.
In reality, it's actually a product of white international cultural bias that is infesting the people in Saudi Arabia. So given that, given they're basically a symptom of Western degeneracy, do you think they not have a right to address that in whatever way they think is most culturally effective?
The great thing about reality is that you can wheedle out the difference between truths
Why is my camera
and
doing that?
untruths.
Yeah.
At the historical
what you're
record
saying-
and determine who's colonized
What
or
you're
not.
saying-
Like, people are going to say stuff, and then there's history. There's things that actually happen.
It isn't to say that all of this exists in infinity. When times change, well, so do the dynamics. If it goes past its necessity, then it will become vulgar and dogmatic. But like I said, we live in a world made up of nations. And until that physically goes away, anything else is, again, just vague gesturing. So in a situation
I mean, chat, this is like a really well put together video.
Such as
Am I
Israel-Palestine,
right?
we can now better understand the dynamics involved.
I'm just talking about the production. Look, I'm looking to get into doing more prepared content. I want to be able to do this kind of thing someday. I am so far away. Obviously, I have a webcam, not like a standard cam that most people work with, and you know, I've got a lot of limitations in terms of my my rig. It's very old and barely works, barely functions. But you know, so sometimes when I'm putting on transitions and stuff, I won't be able to preview the transition because it takes too much RAM and it like kind of hangs up or something, and basically I'll only be able to see what the transition looks like after rendering the video, which is not ideal.
Involved in the stakes they play.
You're hella late. Well, that's okay. We won't tell the teacher. Oh wait, I am the teacher. I am the teacher. Oh my god, I found out. No, the teacher found out. It's okay. What did you miss? Okay, so we watched Jolah versus Vaush, and Jolah's like a utopian progressive, and he just wants things to be good for everybody, and he thinks that Vaush calling his stuff socialist is a loser because socialism has like a lot of baggage. It's kind of a boomer mentality. I didn't really understand what Jolah was saying, but I withheld final judgment until I can understand, because I don't really understand Jolah's ideology, right? And I get the feeling that if I hang out in his chat, I might know more what Jolah's about. So I don't want to make like final judgment on Jolah quite yet, but I am interested in what he's talking about, and I did have some disagreements, I think. Now this is Vaush versus BadMouse. Okay, so BadMouse is taking Vaush to task for being a baby leftist. Why is he a baby leftist? He's a baby leftist because he doesn't get concepts that that maybe people that are more seasoned would understand, right? And Professor Flowers' debate is what's being brought here as the example for that. So
Palestinians, which, remember, doesn't exclude indigenous Jews and other MENA minorities, are, as of current, the indigenous group of today. Not because they lived there for a while, but because of a shared experience through contrast to a dominant group. Just like the Maori are indigenous to New Zealand, even though they only arrived some 300 years before the Europeans did. Jewish people, of course, still have the right to self-determination.
but he has a sociology degree. Oh, well.
They still exist today as a minoritized group. What that does not suddenly grant them, however, is rule over a land because their people happened to live there some time ago. There wasn't an apartheid-esque situation until the lines were drawn by the settlers. And arguably, you could also point to many other lands that also hold Jewish claim, most notably Iberia, which flourished prior to the Inquisition. Somehow, I don't think this logic would suddenly pan out for any other group, would it? Drawing lines in the sand to a country that you don't live in, to which there is no colonial dynamic involved, is hardly a decolonial project, is it? Come on. And if you want to read a little bit more about this on the very unique nature of modern-day Zionism, then I would recommend Ilan Pape's book, 10 Myths.
Chat. Oh my god, again. Once again. Okay, there we are. We're back. Hey, listen. Not a dig. He sounds like Sargon. His voice sounds a little bit like Sargon's, okay? Not a dig, okay? Understand. I'm not saying anything else is like Sargon. I'm just saying, am I just being an American? Maybe his voice isn't anywhere close to Sargon's, and if I was British, I'd know that. I don't know.
About Israel. So this is why the cries of F no state,
it's like a mix between Kraut and Sargon.
That has basically become a red scare amongst many leftists simply doesn't
He's British. We all sound like that doing voiceovers. Right.
compute.
He's from
Literally
Swindon. Okay,
every
that could
country
be.
that deposed its former colonizers just became
Listen, what do I know? Seriously, I'm an ignorant American, so yeah.
another state. Haiti, Jamaica, Kenya, Algeria, Tanzania, DRC, Sudan, Egypt, Zambia, Uganda, Zimbabwe,
This is such a good video. This is so well put together.
Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Malaysia,
But do you know what I mean? Like, Carl's got this way of speaking. Like, okay, so Carl's voice is lower. That's one thing that's different, right? But he's the way of speaking, the kind of like I hear that there. Maybe I don't know, chat.
Indonesia, Ireland. As far as I know, there is no ethnic validation necessary to go and live in these places, believe me. The only country of any that represents that today is Israel. Now, I've just been
Carl's a lot more smug. He does the
speaking about this
smuggling,
for
the
10
smuggle.
minutes or so. So just to
Smug
hammer
chuckle.
home this point a little bit more, after all of that, after all of the nuance that I've described involved in this
nuance?
discussion, this is what Ian is interested in.
Do you think it's possible for a white person to live ethically in South Africa? Do you think the black people, who are by far the majority, have a right to remove the white population? What if a person who's black in a black ethno-state falls in love with a white person? Can they raise mixed children in a black ethno-state? What if people thought within a country that the only way for them to escape colonialism was through the wholesale slaughter
This is
of
so
the white
good.
people who lived there? If the third world decided they could do that, but it probably wouldn't work. The only way to truly succeed would be global conquest through military or nuclear
Okay.
arms. Do you think that would be defensible?
This is what I hate about debate bros. You get put into a thought experiment. You know, you get put into the situation. Well, what if the truth of the matter was it was like that? What if the marginal? What if it's in the nature of human beings to try to assert dominance over other groups, and that by giving in to marginalized people and making their lives slightly less externally determined, we down the line, so in some conceptual reversal of fortune framework, we enable them to become the new oppressors. That is some fucking just... What exactly are you huffing there, Vaush? And is it your farts? That's what I want to know.
As a sort of final way of eliminating the colonization?
You'll notice during this video that I haven't focused much on it. And that's because it's clearly opportunistic. I figured that this debate would be addressing some of Ian's more milquetoast attitudes that Flower brought up in her videos. But instead...
Yeah, exactly, Brixton.
Ian
Exactly.
is deliberately extrapolating two stupid hypotheticals that have little to no historical basis as a way to disprove the very obvious difference laden in oppressed nationalisms. Obviously, Ian knew that he was going to be pushed on his bad opinions, so it would make sense to instead counter with what is a very mute point. It's not like his fans wouldn't just move on from his response to something in a heartbeat, despite stating numerous times that she's not pro-genocide. Lua doesn't.
For a little context, Voss got into specifically because of Professor Flowers was never willing to take genocide off the table as a response from colonizers. Still nonsense, but that's why he's doing it. I think what it was, so if you remember the debate between me and Irrelevant, Relly wanted me to say, wanted me to state why blackface is bad, like what harm it does, right? And I started to talk, and I realized I was talking out of my ass. I'm not black. Nobody's ever blackfaced me. Nobody can do that to me, right? Because of the power differential, because of systemic racism, there is no analogy for what is done to black people in the act of mockery of blackface, right? And so instead of Relly just wanted to walk me down a logic tree and just give the basic bitch answer, right? And then if I get the basic bitch answer, then he takes me to here. And what I'm saying is that the basic bitch answer is wrong, because the basic bitch answer is to assume lived experience I don't have. I wasn't comfortable with doing that, and Professor Flowers wasn't comfortable with imposing parameters for solution on every colonized group ever, and that's what Vaush was asking her to do. The thing about this is, a lot of these times these debate bros will ask you a question and they won't be specific, and when you think specifically and say, you know what, I'm going to answer what you gave me, and I don't know, chat, maybe that's a neurodivergent trait on my part, right, to do that with Irrelevant, but I legitimately wanted to give him the answer to the question that he asked me, right? I think Professor Flowers the same thing, whether it's neurodivergent or not, it's more true to the words that were proposed, the words that were asked, right? So, and this might be a case in which neurodivergent people have a little bit more of a base take on this. Like, if you actually follow the words and answer the exact, question instead of kind of what Vaush is getting at, because the problem is Vaush hasn't correctly codified his question. Irrelevant didn't think about what he was asking me, right? And that's a problem. And when you try to run me through a logic tree with this half-formed logic, I'm going to call you on it. And you're gonna say that I'm supporting blackface. And Vaush is gonna say that Professor Flowers wants genocide. That is bullshit. That is horrible, and the way that he jacketed her in this fucking debate was reprehensible. The kind of fucking harassment that she suffered, the poison to her reputation, the poison to her name, the lies told about her are inexcusable, and that is something that I will never forgive, okay?
Get that same
You can
treat-
tell I'm a little bit pissed about this, right?
He does this a lot, if you'll notice, most memorably justifying pedophilia as consistent with buying computer products because he didn't want to lose to the vegans.
Because we buy shit all the time that's made, the silicon farmed by slaves in Africa, plastic made in, like, you know, factory farms that pollute the earth, like that sort of thing. But we don't impugn each other for it.
Okay, so if you were to, so, you know, there's pedophiles, right, who buy child pornography. Would you say they should not be held responsible for doing that?
Yes.
Really? Even though they're directly supporting child rape?
Yeah, I think it's hypocritical.
You can do this.
Wait, so he's saying that, like, okay, under capitalism, we use products like cell phones that are demonstrably derived from exploitation of child labor, right? And that, oh my god, this is fucking Takemeister. This is what this is. I'm so sick of listen, I'm sick of debate bros. I'm sick of Takemeisters. I'm sick of hypotheticals. I'm sick of logic trees. I'm sick of all this shit. I want to form a new political left that comes from the fucking heart, that acknowledges this, and that acknowledges that this is our center, acknowledges that there is power in our union, acknowledges that there is something in our spirit that strives out for self-determination, that strives for freedom. And I don't want to say that I don't want to have some dipshit debate bro tell me that that's cringe and that facts don't care about my feelings. Get back to Ben Shapiro with that garbage, okay?
Extrapolation in
oh my
any
god.
kind of
I'm
way.
sorry, Chad.
My culture is
I get a
very
little-
important to
I
me
get a little
as an
animated.
oppressed minority. Oh, so what if your culture supports child brides, huh? Then that's suddenly okay? Ever thought of that? Obviously, we wouldn't support that. Like I've said, there are plenty of reactionary practices in any culture. But can we just, like, try and engage in discussion for a second? Does that suddenly mean that the whole concept of culture being very integral to oppressed groups, in light of the appropriation and demonization by the majority, is now somehow dismissed and proved wrong because Irish Laddie just threw in something straight out of left field? It really takes me back 5 or 6 years to when anti-feminists thought that they could
shit, who is that
debunk
guy?
decades
Chat, who
of
is this guy?
research on social conflict theory in just
remember
a
this guy.
single video.
Who is
And
this?
it really reeks of this
I know this
no black
YouTuber.
rights, no gay rights, no women's rights, just human rights.
That's
It's
Thunderfoot?
liberal
What?
bile.
Are you fucking serious? I thought Thunderfoot was some old dude.
And it is
Was that when he was
completely devoid
younger?
of any nuance whatsoever.
I don't give a fuck about preserving culture.
That's Thunderfoot?
Yeah, well, maybe you should.
Wow.
I know that statement might make you sound very ethereal, pretty funky and out there, right? Well, to me, you sound like an edgy YouTube atheist.
A newer, better, less problematic, actually leftist egg mom, Marianne Williamson. Hey, I mean, I don't know if the crystal ball fits. I don't know.
Have we
Fits in my
entered a
palm? I don't know.
leftist dark age recently?
Look. Here's what I need, chat. I need a crystal ball, and I want to do the David Bowie thing. Do you know what I'm talking about? The David Bowie thing? Like David. What's that movie? David Bowie has like a crystal ball. He's like. I would drop it though, chat. I would drop it, and it would shatter, and it would be super cringe and super embarrassing. But like, I like to think that I could do that.
Why have so many people suddenly adopted such a reductive idea of very complex issues?
Labyrinth, yes. Oh my god, yes.
This is what happens when you
The
put
Goblin King.
winning and semantics over trying to engage
And yes, chat. I know that Bowie is problematic as fuck.
in a
I
discussion.
do. I'm aware.
Does that remind you of anything? I would like to briefly touch on
And
this
yet you
comic because it's a
participate in
great example of
society.
how
Very
quickly something
curious.
can go from being a very useful critique into an
Fucking sea lion.
unnecessary dogma. On its own, the comic is good. It's explaining how obtuse it is to not think about the greater dynamics in society
Oh,
and
I see.
instead just
Vaush is using this. We live in a society to. Yeah.
use the superficial points at hand to declare victory. But over time, this comic's use has gone from getting people to think
The Goblin King's codpiece, damn.
into this is what
Damn.
you should think and this is how you should respond.
Labyrinth made me the gay I am today. God bless.
So streamers earning large amounts of money and fame might be counterproductive to the overall struggle. The comic. I've seen this sentiment on far too many occasions.
Like, I've thought about this before, and in fact, chat, this has even been talked about in my community. Believe it or not, there's people in my community that are already planning for me to be as big as Hassan. I'll get back to you on when that will actually happen, but, you know, like, right, you know, when I get, like, to even be earning enough money to not be in danger of not having sufficient material conditions, yeah, I want to look, that needs to be looked at, right? Because the way that these things work is that, like, this system relies on unpaid labor from the mods, you know, from a lot of people. Basically, the only way a streamer succeeds is if people take it upon themselves to come in and provide free labor, and that's not right. That's not cool. We are building something real, and I feel like if streamers like Hassan could at least channel some of what they're making back into systems which maybe fund smaller leftist projects better, then we could have less, like, unpaid labor. We could have less people doing this out of the goodness of their hearts, because, like, it breaks my heart every time, chat, that the people that are supporting me so often are people that really don't, you know, they're on the, you know, borderline of being able to take care of themselves too, right? The people that are doing things for me are people that don't have a lot of extra time to give, and yet they do it anyway, and they're really good people, and I wish to God I could do something for them more than just like, hey, are you can I support your project? Can I give you some a shout out, right? I really hope for that day.
Occasions, and I always find it really depressing. Do you see how all the nuance is now gone? All talk of thinking about how our financials and fame might affect our decision making. No, it's not worth talking about because Matt Bohr's comic. Don't bother.
He's an animated Che t-shirt.
Engaging. Matt Bohr's comic. Don't bother analyzing. Matt Bohr's comic. And as a final remark to all these genocide support accusations, since I'm sure Ian's fans love to talk about logic, well, here's some for you. Not saying yes or no doesn't mean that you therefore support the opposite. Simply...
BadMouse, please tweet that at Irrelevant. Please tweet that at Irrelevant. That is exactly the bullshit I was dealing with Irrelevant. And that's why Mr. Geek put a thumbnail up that says, is blackface okay? And it has me, like, looking confused. Like, I can't decide if blackface is good or bad.
That the answer is not yes or no. Libertarians love to posit the self-ownership principle, that if you don't own your body, that therefore means that somebody else does. But in reality, the answer is much more simple. Nobody does. People are missing the point when it comes to the statement that the colonized do not have to live with their colonizers. It's not to say which is right and which is wrong, simply that colonialism digs its own gravediggers, and said gravediggers are not to blame for that. Colonialism is a fucked up issue.
This is very similar to my original critique of the debate that you can watch. God, I've got like several versions of this. Okay, so the one I would recommend is just me analyzing the Vaush debate with Professor Klaus. Now, that being a given, I take 3 hours of debate and turn it into 8 hours of analysis. So it's a little heavy. I understand if you can't get through it all. But like, I mean, this is really similar to what I was trying to say. It is the colonizer that puts the colonized in the dilemma of choosing between an absurd binary of you know, giving up on self-determination or, you know, potentially committing violence, right? That's on the colonizer. That is not the colonized people, right? If the colonizer has the appropriate response of saying, the shit that we're doing here is a little bit unfair, maybe we should do something about it, maybe we should like look into this. Maybe this isn't the right choice. Then that fucking binary is never forced on anyone. And so to put that fucking moral obligation on the people with the fucking boot on their throat is absurd. And I'm not gonna take that shit from any debate, bro, anywhere. I'm sick of that garbage. I am not gonna take this fucking victim blaming mentality. I'm done with it.
Out with horrendous baggage and trauma that doesn't always leave the most desirable of options in the minds of the colonized.
I'm mad as hell,
despite
and I'm
all
not
this,
going to take it anymore!
I highly doubt that if Ireland were to become peak Ireland, that you would suddenly have Catholics and Southerners going down to hunt all the Brits and prods from Ulster, would you? Somehow, I doubt that's going to happen. I wonder why. And rather than me having to do all your homework for you, you might want to find out the answer for that question yourself. People like Ian will always try and claim that they are only being objective. Well, to the native, objectivity is always against him. And I take those words with you if I were you.
Yeah, because it's not just objectivity, it's objectivity in the context of certain thought patterns. Those thought patterns allow those in power to kind of cheat, to put their finger on the scale, to obscure the truth, right? And that's why objectivity isn't always objectivity. And God, like, really, do you... Like, listen. I know the concept. I understand the concept. I understand you're like want to go on what is, not what we think is, or you know, right? Like that's the concept. But like, there's anybody who thinks that they know the objective truth and is going to make that statement like just point blank, they're full of shit. They're full of shit. You have to account for your subjectivity. You can't assume objectivity. That's bullshit. That's what a debate bro does. And that's why their shit is falling apart right now. That's why their castles are burning.
Even if, for the sake of argument.
And I want them to burn to the ground, and I want to burn the ashes, okay? I'm done with this shit. I'm done with this version of the online left. This is not the way forward. This is not the way left. This is not anything except for a bunch of fucking grifters grifting and distorting what was a people's movement. What had a heart, and taking that out of it. Destroying any opportunity for solidarity. I'm done with it, okay? I'm fucking done.
Professor Flower's point here was a little bit flawed. Why exactly would you therefore take the views of Ian like some sort of sacred testament, as most of his
Totsurun, you are literally the first person to notice. Congratulations.
fans evidently
Oh wait, except for the troll. I think the trolls noticed.
appear to do?
The trolls had some interesting takes on my...
When someone makes remarks like this...
I mean, you can argue logistics on this. No part of America is going to be given over to black people. You move to Africa, where no country is better in total than America is in terms of socioeconomic achievement? Probably not. I don't know. Are black people in Africa safe? It seems like they're not, because they die more than black people do over here. But your economy is going to be buckled under the knee of America. I was just wondering how you felt about black people who are racist against white people. This is also what modern Nazis say about Jews in America.
It's literally trying to have your own self-determination. That's what it is.
That's
That's
what
the context
white
of what I'm
nationalists
talking about.
ask for. Right there. Self-determination is the
Okay,
dog whistle.
so Vaush, Hitler, who some people think was a vegetarian, one of his favorite recipes was for liver dumplings, okay? Let's say, Vaush, that you really like liver dumplings. You try them, you're skeptical, you eat a liver dumpling, and you're like, this is great. Do I get to call you Hitler? Do I get to imply that you might be a Nazi? I mean, Hitler really liked that shit, you know? Like, that's the kind of argument you're making. You wouldn't let someone else get away with this argument against you. Why are you trying to use this argument against Professor Flowers?
That they use when talking about ethno-states.
Does none of that language give
You did
off
too. Oh, thank
awfully
you.
familiar
Thank
vibes?
you.
Does none of that mindset not raise an eyebrow? Does it not scream of a certain first world-centric thinking? Does it not, for that matter, seem incredibly simplistic and juvenile? The lack of any response from people who take in these words tells me quite a lot about the nature of the people that we're dealing with. This is the problem with the baby leftist mindset. It is a highly smug and self-satisfied understanding of the world that is hostile to any critical analysis of its own chauvinist characteristics, because to do so, by its very presence, would wreck it.
listen, it broke my heart to see this happen. Like, as much as people think I'm a Vaush hater, I'm not. I was sort of not friends with Vaush, but I knew Vaush. I got along with Vaush. You know, I was okay with Vaush. In some ways, I carried water for Vaush, right? I would kind of, you know, I felt like, you know, the way that the clout game works is that if you want to get, you know, something from somebody, you got to kind of sweep up their messes. When Vaush leaves a mess, when he says something fucked up, you find a way to make it okay. If he says something fucked up about trans people, a trans person comes out and says, like, it's not really that bad. I'm not offended by it, and if you're offended by it for me, that's fucking cringe, right? That is how this game is played, right? So I carried water for these debate bros for way too long because I thought that I could reform them. I thought that if I could get up and be their buddy, that I could be like, hey, buddy, you know that you could kind of, like, this is a little bit wrong. Maybe, you know, I could. And the first time I tried, I got crushed. I got fucking elbowed in the eye. I got destroyed, chat. I got fucking wrecked. The entirety of Twitch politics came down upon my head. So no, reforming it from the inside does not work. You know what does work? Burning it to the ground and burning the ashes, okay? And we're talking about the movement, right? We're not talking about any physical structure. We're not talking about burning anything. There's no actually fire involved in what I'm saying. I am saying, metaphorically, burning this garbage debate bro culture to the fucking ground and burning the ashes so that no one can reconstitute it ever again, because it is a massive and monumental failure, okay?
And if that happens, then that is a very grave moment for Vaush. The most wretched of this whole thing, though, is the fact that even if Ian decided, by some divine encounter, to go back on all of his words and change his mind and reassess his positions, he still wins. Ian's audience would adapt and soon follow his party line. How ironic. Feeling validated because their lord and master has now given them the green light. And yet, all of those who made him...
I mean, here's the deal. As far as his personality, like, I kind of get along with the guy. Like, you know, he loves my, like, little gators. You know, he loves my little dudes, right? He loves that thing, you know? And he would hang out in my chat. That's where, when I first talked to him, I think I was just, like, streaming, and all of a sudden, like, Vaush V appears in my chat, and I'm like, okay, right? But you know, like, that kind of doesn't matter when you're gonna jacket somebody like Professor Flowers as supporting genocide. Vaush, what the fuck were you thinking?
Changes.
That's some shit I can't fucking forgive.
Mind in the
I don't care about how much we agree on JoJo, okay, Vaush? I don't care how much you like my little dudes, Vaush. That is something I cannot forgive.
First place would be cast into general obscurity, whilst Ian grew ever more popular. Hell, even his fans might use this change as a way to say, see, haters, he did change his mind. See, are you going to be happy now? Recuperation is certainly not something inherent to corporations, that's for sure. Truly, there is no better endorsement of Vaush than a protest against Vaush. If you are a fan of Ian and you feel like some of what I've said here is a little bit too harsh or in bad faith, you're sort of proving my point. I'm not really that interested. I've heard that excuse far too many times now for me to bother taking it seriously. Not every belief is gained through gentle pushing, I'm afraid to say. A lot of my beliefs that I hold today had to some extent, be thrust upon me. It made me very uncomfortable at first. I didn't...
No, I totally agree with you. I am the Dave. Listen, I'm going to continue to consume this content because I feel it's really important to criticize it. And I still want to help these people become better. But I am not waiting around for them to get it, okay? Part of your audience gets it, Vaush. And they unsubscribed you, and they hit subscribe on me, and they hit subscribe on Professor Flowers. Now, there might not be a lot of them, Vaush, but that is going to be an ever-increasing rate. And if you want to be part of where the left is going and not just be an example, an object lesson of our fuck-ups of the past, Vaush, then you need to recognize, okay? You know, like, I mean, I don't know. Like, is it recuperation? Like, I guess it could be, right? This is what BadMouse is talking about. This is like, maybe somewhere down the line, Vaush is going to get this. He's going to adopt this. But he's never going to give Professor Flowers the credit for having had the right take to begin with. He's never going to apologize to her. He's never going to undo what he did to her, right? That's not going to happen. Just like Dylan eventually admitted that having Rob Noor on to argue transphobic bullshit as a game show, right? And to turn our fucking lives into a goddamn game show, he eventually admitted that that was wrong. He eventually admitted that there was a weakness to when a bigot comes on your panel and goes off on tropes. You can't expect the content creators on there to debate the bigot to be able to shoot down every single one of those tropes. If there's 18 tropes laid out there, they can only shoot like 4 of those tropes each, right? So that means there's 10 tropes left on the board. 10 tropes that Dylan's liberal audience had never heard before and didn't know how to refute. 10 tropes that many of them like absorbed. That is called a brainworm. That is how brainworms happen. Do you want brainworms, Dylan? This is how you get brainworms. Dylan admitted on Xander Hall that I was right, but he never said, I'm sorry, no comment chick. What you were asking for was really not anything extraordinary, was really not anything was not too much. What you were asking for was base. He never apologized to me. He never acknowledged that I had the right take. He just recuperated what I said on Xander Halls. But we fucking caught him. We got the clip, so we know the truth, right? But yeah, don't expect these people to ever fucking actually to ever take accountability for the damage that they've done to marginalized groups, and that's what happens. Professor Flowers took the hit on that one, and don't expect this guy to ever try to make it better.
Like it.
I wish he would, but I don't think I'm not holding my breath, and I'm not waiting around, and neither is your audience, Vaush. They are not waiting around. The ones of them who get it, the ones of them who aren't like fucking mind numbed from sitting in there and marinating so long, they are getting it and they are leaving. Okay, it's up to you to recognize this or not.
I wanted to fight back. I felt.
And if you don't, it's your funeral. I don't mean a literal funeral. I mean the funeral for your fucking, ascendancy on social media and the online left, right?
Like jumping out. But eventually, I came around to them. I had a great big moan about it.
I'm way too animated today.
On, and I'm better for having known them. If by any chance you felt this video made you question a few things, I highly advise you actually take some interest in some of this stuff. It's bad enough that as a white guy, more people
entertainer first and anything else second
are going to listen to me and take me seriously than if I wasn't.
Ooh, nice. He learned the wrong lessons from Destiny. Destiny does his stuff as a job and sees himself as an entertainer. His style is no good for genuine political change. True.
I do not want to be...
Yeah, it's performance. People call me performative when I get emotional. But I'm just being real. And they haven't seen that before. So they don't know what to make of it.
Emulating
they
that
think
same
I'm playing
dynamic
a character or something.
Of which I am criticized.
Chat, there's one character on this stream, and it's me. And I am a dynamic person. I have many different feelings. I have many different moods. I have many different modalities. But don't get this wrong. No matter what my hair looks like, I am the same person. I am one.
I only know what I do because I've bothered reading up on it and
I just can't decide whether to call myself Irene or Maya.
Listening to the conversations of people who are a lot more knowledgeable than me. Piecing it all together.
I should explain that.
Making actual analysis of each individual situation instead of just following along some vile dogma. Well, so should you. The conversations and discussions that we are currently having are a lot more complex than some BuzzFeed article. And in case you were wondering, I have no intentions of debating Ian. What a lot of you need to understand is that this modern obsession with debate doesn't really mean that much.
Look, Vaush, if you want to debate, I'll debate you. But, you're gonna be surprised.
He doesn't prove anything, and it favors the more ruthless and showmany person, that which I am not. And you go around carrying that debate bro attitude into your later life.
If I was to debate Vaush, it would be to illustrate a specific point about Vaush, which I'm pretty sure he would step right into.
Believe me, as a person who has had personal experience about this over my adult life, it does not pan out too well. In 3 or 4 years, you'll all be looking back at how cringe you were. Ian has clearly showcased in his time here that he's interested in one thing, and one thing only: his ego. And only time is going to reveal that.
If
That is the problem with debate roast right there. Right
the
there.
American pretensions were based on more solid,
James Baldwin.
a more honest assessment of life and of themselves, it would not mean for Negroes, when someone says urban renewal, that Negroes simply going to be thrown out into the streets, which is what it does mean now. This is not an act of God. We're dealing with a society made and ruled by men. If the American Negro had not been present in America, I am convinced that the history of the American labor movement would be much more edifying than it is. It is a terrible thing for an entire people to surrender to the notion that 1/9 of its population is beneath them. And until that moment, until the moment comes when we, the Americans, we, the American people, are able to accept the fact that I have to accept, for example, that my ancestors are both white and black, that on that continent we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other, and that I am not a ward of America. I am not an object of missionary charity.
Vaush invoking enough cringe to bring BadMouse back from hiatus is something that I would have never expected. Does anybody know, is BadMouse going to do more videos now, or is this like a one-off?
I am one of the people
He did do a follow-up, and we'll watch that really
who
quick.
built the country. Until this moment, there is scarcely any hope for the American dream, because the people who are denied participation in it, by their very presence, will wreck it. And if that happens, it's a very grave moment for the West. Thank you.
That was a really good video. That was an amazing fucking video. Okay, so we're not gonna watch this, although I'm sure it would be interesting. It's Vaush getting drugged to Sargon critiquing what? BadMouse? Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay. Let's look at the second of this video series here. The follow-up. Vaush and Baby Leftism, the follow-up.
I'm going to review some of the responses to the last video about Vaush,
nice,
and
okay.
go over some of the stuff that was cut from the original. I didn't think I'd have to go over this, but just to clarify two main
Beelzebub.
points. You can't really be racist towards whites. That's not really a thing, at least here in the West.
Next to debunk Vaush, Noam Chomsky is joining the Twitch debate scene.
Racism as it stands is really
Hey, I'll mod for him.
about power. This is precisely the reason why when Ian says that there might be systemic differences, but even if you take all that away, the end result is still the same. It's not the same.
Now, I know the difference there. It's that trans people are systemically oppressed and white people really aren't. But even if you take away the systemic oppression element, you still have the
But you
exclusionary.
can't take away the systemic oppression element.
I mean, if my grandmother had wheels, she would have been a bike. You know what? You know, you know what? It doesn't make any sense. What
different things are different. Different things are different.
I can have people yelling racist chants towards me. You Yorkie. You honky piece of shit. You Peckerwood Oaky trash hole. You
Oh my god.
you lime nose porridge eating angler.
Oh my
you
god.
anglo.
Hey, listen.
You
Wait, I like oatmeal. Am I a porridge eating anglo?
whitey, white,
Fucking love me some oatmeal.
cracker mouth, white. Okay, look, I'm still going to be more favorably viewed on job descriptions. I've still got a country that teaches my history in schools. I'm still far less likely to go to prison or be stopped and searched, aren't I? That's the reality of oppression. Secondly, nation isn't just a synonym for country. In the way that people like
This is
Marx
important.
used it, the historical way, the historical definition of the word, nation refers to a people in an area with a shared identity, culture, heritage, language, etc. So, you know, Basque Nation, Navajo Nation, these are specific people groups. I think the crux of all this is, and the thing that I'm really trying to get at, is that a lot of the time folks can feel as though they're really doing good. They're really adamant that they're doing good for people, when in reality, they're actually being very inconsiderate and naive without noticing. As an example from my life, I was once talking to my self-proclaimed centrist
Yeah, Jennifer.
friend about feminism, and by the end of it, he said something along the lines of, you know what, you're right. And I guess
Chomsky teaming up with Zizek to own Vaush.
it's up to us as men to give women a helping hand. Now, at the time I went along with that, but the more I've really thought about it, it's actually very reductive. I know that over the past few years we've all tried to sort of combat toxic maleness by saying, oh, you know, this isn't feminism, this is feminism, but I think we've reached a point now where we have to actually start saying, yeah, it's a little bit more complicated than just that. And when you're saying, you know, lending a helping hand, what you're actually saying, it's coming from the presumed subtext.
What's up, M-Dragon? Good to see you.
That you are the one who's going to be doing all the heavy lifting. That you intend to take charge, as it were. If you ask me, you know, with the history of feminism and all that, the actual way I personally think about helping...
Noam Chomsky, what a nightmare! ...
is largely one of stepping out of the way. You might think that's regressive. Oh, that's segregational, you know, it's splitting the working class apart, but women are at a lesser point in society, and you have to, you know, allow more space by removing some of yours. Otherwise, it's very akin to the white man must liberate the slaves, the enslaver must free the enslaved. It's just coming from this man's burden trope. It's not actually helping. That's called wanting to be a martyr. And at first, of course, it's very annoying. You know, you've been told your entire life in the media that it's your job as a dude to change the world. And now, even though you've become left and you're like, yeah, I know it all now, I'm a feminist, blah, 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 only to be told, well, no, I think you got a bit more work to do. Of course it's frustrating. It's always frustrating being wrong. But that doesn't mean that your annoyance is valid. Chris Hedges actually spoke about that. I don't really care what you think about Chris Hedges. It's the point that matters. He called this accepting the blindness. And when you do that, when you accept that blindness, you can then actually go on to help people in a genuine, real manner that actually makes proper change. On this same point, I'm all for internationalism. Let me make that clear, but you can't just get to internationalism by just proclaiming it, right? Because it's very much, we should work towards internationalism, and I'll be the one at the front. Okay, that's how it comes across. Oh, how could I possibly be supporting chauvinism if I oppose chauvinism? Huh? That makes me the goodest boy. It's much harder for someone who is higher up the pecking order to really empathize with those who are lower, those who are being pecked to know what it feels like on a daily basis. People who are more privileged don't have that constant feedback loop, and we engage in unnoticed aggressions and beliefs of grandeur. It's the world's biggest gambit. Again, you might not think you're saying that, but that's how it comes across. That's the text. That's the end result of this. Actual problem solving requires letting go of your ego, letting go of your fire hose, so to speak, and letting someone else have a go. And just an added point, that friend that I told you about, it would appear, based on what I told you, that he'd come around, right? He hadn't. He just said that to give off the impression of change. In reality, further on, a few days more later in life, he would say stuff like, oh, women are crazy, aren't they? You know, he just continued his very misogynistic, passive-aggressive jabs whenever a woman dared to have an opinion. It's one of the reasons why I don't trust Ian whenever he claims, you know, to have learnt these things, because he gives off that same exact narcissistic energy that that friend had, just learning how to hide it a bit better for next time. The topic of South Africa is one that I left out of the original video, but it's a very...
Okay, I made that comment too, M-Dragon. Yeah, okay, so I'm not the only one who feels like, who gets a little Sargon. Sargon's obviously lower in register, but yeah, there's something, yeah, like very, yeah. It's honestly, it's probably the accent or something, like probably the same region, maybe.
Interesting one. In America, people might be able to worm their way out of responsibility by saying, oh, you know, I was Irish, I'm Italian, I wasn't a WASP, whatever. But in South Africa, there's really no excuse. The land was literally trampled on by whites and enforced much harder than any Jim Crow. Somewhere around 70 to 80% of the land is held by whites, who make up literally less than 10% of the population. They still maintain the power over that land. So if I went up and said, well, not me, but if someone went up and said, we are poor because you have all the power over the land, the white man would really not have any excuse. No, I only have it because my father had it. I shouldn't be held responsible, Inspector Ghoul. Well, why does he have it? Okay, this is in literal living memory. This isn't something that happened 150 years ago. It's literally less than 30 years ago. How else can it be? It was enforced through racism. So in order for that wrong to be undone, it has to be decolonized. That requires taking the land, giving the power and autonomy back to black people. Otherwise, in this, communistic South African utopia, there will be enormous oversight by white people who've experienced decades of top pecking order privilege. What do I really mean when I say oversight? Well, it might be difficult for you to understand if you don't live outside of America, but a lot of people have this highly Americanized outlook
Oh shit!
on...
Good point. I'm the Dave. The problem is that when Vaush goes into a debate to win, no matter what, there's a degree of dishonesty in his engagement with other people. He comes across much more left-wing, just talking in his chat to his chat. Yeah. No, you're right about that. A lot of what he does is like to deal with the platform, to turn everything into a take-meister. He's gotten caught on this a few times with take-meisters. When I say take-meisters, I'm talking about like a Mott and Bailey, where he makes one argument, like in order to trap you in, to be like, I want to debate you, and then when you go debate him, he'll be like, actually, what I'm saying is more like this, right? So there's a lot that Vaush does that like is for the purpose of, let's be honest, ego aggrandizement and success on the platform, and those things go hand in hand in the model that Vaush and Demon Mama practice, which is a model of dominance paradigm. It's pretty fucking clear. When I saw Demon Mama go at Cherry, listen, Cherry had just done 3 days of NCC bad streams. Cherry was absolutely just cravenly appealing to the Dylan Byrne stands there to get partner, and that's pretty sick to be used by somebody that's got nothing but sitting there and watching a video and half-heartedly, giving her take on it, right? To get like partner. But at the same time, when I saw Demon Mama do the whole thing where it's like, oh yeah, debate me, Cherry, and Cherry's like, actually, I'm not feeling it right now. And like, ha ha ha, low level goblin, it was just like, oh my god, this is so cringe. This is so cringe, right? I don't want to be a part of this. I don't like this. There's too much ego in this, and there's not enough truth. Listen, when somebody makes a point to you that you didn't think of, there's an appropriate response to that, and that's to say, so-and-so was right! You gotta fucking fall off that trampoline. You gotta be willing, like me, to fall off that trampoline and admit when somebody had a point that you didn't, acknowledge, right? And there's precious little of that, because the way that this operation works is if Vaush ever goes like, Professor Flowers was right! And falls on his ass off the trampoline, then his audience leaves, right? And that's a bad audience. That's a bad audience. That's not an audience that you want to cultivate. That's an audience that's going to coddle you and enable your worst fucking takes, right? And I don't think that's good for you, Vaush. I don't think that's good for the left. I don't think that's good for any of us.
Things. It's not, necessarily that Ian supports exceptionalism or anything, but
he should be the devil's advocate for Halloween.
He still definitely harbors that certain integral American-centric outlook. I remember when he was so avidly defending, this vote blue no matter who, he was literally saying stuff like, stop
cultivating more humility, great idea.
Talking about American politics when you don't even live here. You don't get to speak for issues that don't affect you. And I was like, wow.
Oh yeah, chat.
Wow. America,
make sure to like
you
and
are
subscribe
not Vietnam
if you haven't
or Costa Rica. You are the single most powerful country.
And subscribe if you haven't already. Because you're going to get more of these base takes.
For nearly 100 years. The world answers to you. The world is changed by you.
And please, for fuck's sake, somebody tell me that I didn't do this entire stream for free. Look, if I did, it's okay. It needed to be said, it needed to be done, that's fine. But if somebody is out there and wants to throw me a super chat, I will be very, very happy, just on a symbolic level of
well, not some
hey,
little nation.
I got $5 for the stream.
Somewhere
Yay.
with a unique identity that bigger nations like to fetishize and demonize. You are the identity of the world. So when you scold people for talking about American issues, even though they live outside, this is the kind of centric thinking I'm talking about. You're literally number one, and yet you act like you're just any other country. Now think about that's the Americanized part of your identity. Now think about how the white part of your identity might overlook the experiences of BME people. And of course, yes, before anyone says anything, there are some people who go too far with this and just make another dogma out of it. You know, festering their opinion in America, not based on its history, but just on the fact that it is America, and end up just hating or liking something.
You know, nobody. Okay, sorry. When I say that, I'm speaking to people who have money to spend, not to people that don't. If you need your money to pay for, for necessary things, I am not asking for money for you. You are a perfectly good free rider. We do not mind having free riders like you along for the ride. But if somebody can throw some money my way, I appreciate the hell out of you.
Based on America.
If nothing else, then just for validating, what I'm doing here.
Stance. And that's just a really flawed outlook. You are not going to just use that as a cover to ignore the true reality of American chauvinism. That is very much a current in leftist circles as well. Just in case anyone's, wondering, I think the same for Britain as well. Okay, we like to hide ourselves by saying, America's worse and all that, but the reality is, we're pretty much just as bad. We're just, runner-up. Just on a similar topic, yeah, Welsh independence, go for it. All right, if that's what you want, if that's what you people want, go for it.
Wait, what is... Oh my god, thank you so much! Thank you so much! Thank you for the $20 super chat. I've never done a super chat before. I hope it works. Yes, this does work. And it definitely makes me feel a lot better about what I'm doing with my life.
The old thing about, the Welsh-English union is that, yes, it is a union that has only been for the benefit of one. Very on topic, eh? I don't really know too much about the Cornish. I would have figured as far as homogeneity went, they're basically English at this point. But I'm happy to be proved wrong. Obviously, let me...
Chat, I know even less about this subgroups of I was about to say Britons, but Britons are like a... Oh my god, I'm so confused, chat. I'm so confused. Listen, yeah, I should learn more about England.
Reiterate, you could have the debate about reactionary practices within your group or your movement, okay? And there are many, all right? But you first and foremost have to have that baseline that each nation has its own right to self-determination, okay? That's your starting point. Then you can go further into it. Nobody's going to cancel you for criticizing us.
Yeah, thank you, JKRSSLR. I hope I pronounced your name right.
Aspects of Plaid Cymru or the SNP.
Bobby
Just stop
from
having a crass
Supernatural?
take on that fundamental point. I noticed that some people were a little bit confused about the tribe analogy. It's explaining basically why we can say North Americans sleep on stolen land, but British people do not. In the land back discussion, some
autocorrect changed your message?
Like to bring up, as Ian partly did.
Weird. Oh, superheat. It says superheat. Oh, weird.
Well, all people fought against one another in the past. American Indians fought against one another. They enslaved each other. What do we do? Do we just go back to the very first people and then give them the land? How are we going to do that? Why don't we just give reparations to the Babylonians? And that's true. It wasn't just all peaceful, it was violent, I'm very sure it was. We can't change the past, but we can change what is happening today. What are the antagonisms of today? And Indian nations still exist.
You can't... That's wild. You can't say super chat in super chat.
They're still
it's like Fight Club.
Dispossessed. The injustice is still alive in our historical continuity. There aren't...
But chat, understand something. No matter what kind of bullshit you might hear from, alt accounts on Twitch, I am not Tyler Durden. Okay? I am not Tyler Durden. I am Ed freaking Norton, okay?
Colonial antagonisms in Britain.
I'm barely treading water, okay? I am not somebody that's, plotting to,
like there are in America.
You're gonna hear some weird shit if you go over to Twitch. You're gonna hear some weird shit about me right now, because there's some weird champs spending their money to try to ruin me on Twitch, and little do they know that Twitch is gonna die anyway, so I'm not that concerned.
There's no similar dynamic. There are national questions, like I just said, and go for it.
But yeah, there's some forces at work on Twitch that want to push every trans creator, every POC creator, every marginalized creator that stands up for your people. They want to push us off the platform because they want to make room for more sycophants that carry water and say, no, it's all right that you were transphobic. It wasn't really transphobic. It's okay. I'm trans and I didn't mind.
Alright, but there's no real colonial dynamic. This is Britain, by the way. Those questions ended many centuries ago. That's why Indian land back is a thing, but Iceni land back is not a thing. That's why the plantation of Ulster is still a very touchy subject, but the Donnonii question is not. One thing I did do wrong.
I like Twitch and want it to live. Bezos though. Bezos doesn't want it. They're actually not making that, like, it seems like Amazon's not that invested in Twitch. If they really want to invest in Twitch, they would have something like the algorithm, something in terms of discoverability. But what they seem to be more invested in is allowing the discoverability to be decided by the clout networks. So in other words, how useful are you to Clout Network X? That is how much, you know, discoverability you have, right? Or you can pay to win. You can pay. People can put money in your can pay Twitch to make your channel get promoted more. But either way, it's not anything like with YouTube. At least, you know, what they do is they like try to figure out, all right, JKRSSLR, what kind of videos do you like to watch? Let me recommend nocommentchick, since like your videos you like are pretty similar, right? It's more like that. So since Twitch doesn't have that, and every other platform has streaming plus something else, Twitch doesn't have plus something else. I don't see a lot of future for Twitch, and I also don't see Amazon caring about Twitch that much.
Wrong in my video was I incorrectly made out that
Bad Bunny in trouble? I don't know. Bad Bunny's starting to do stuff on YouTube.
Native Americans are all of one nation. My bad. I should have said nations. Of course, I know that American Indians are all of different tribes. What this graphic is trying to showcase is when it comes to effect, when it comes to how the dominant power views them, they're treated as Indian. Is there not a shared experience felt by all Indian nations? There cannot be an indigenous camp unless there is a colonizer. I don't say that I'm indigenous to England, do I?
Oh, being permanently banned for... Oh, Bad Bunny being permanently banned?
You see how weird that sounds?
I heard Bad Bunny says she's worried about being... Oh my god. Well, I don't know. I mean, like, this is the thing, chat, is that, like, when Twitch politics is able to consolidate, you know, all the donors, all the clout, all the viewers, right, and then just like poison the well about anybody who stands up to them, then yeah, you do get into a situation where they're gonna have a lot more sway with the Twitch moderation department too, right? So I don't know. Bad Bunny could be. I mean, if Bad Bunny says she's worried about being banned, like that could be for real.
Far-right people like to say stuff like
decolonize. And in general, one of the worst things that I notice about Twitch, right? The biggest sin that you can commit on Twitch isn't being racist. It's accusing someone of being racist and then not having like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like, you know, all down the line proof, right? You can't leave out one letter. Whereas if you want to accuse somebody of making a false accusation of racism, all you gotta have is A and Z. You got A and Z and you can say, canceled! That's how it works on Twitch, right? You get in more trouble for calling out bullshit than you do for doing bullshit. And that's another reason that I don't really want to be a part of that anymore. Twitch keeps banning her temporarily. They don't like women or trans people or POC on Twitch. That's true. And there's a group of people that are aggregating power. And guess what, chat? They're right wing. They're extremely right wing. They are extremely right wing, and the left wing content creators don't seem to notice, right? That like the creator group that you're in is run by a Lauren Southern mod. You want to put two and two together and figure out what's happening? It's called intellectual capture. Psst, it's called intellectual capture, and it's why you're not a real leftist, and it's why you got no solidarity, and it's why you're not down to help anybody when they're getting crushed by the clout network, right? There's nobody to help you because they're all worried about their own shit. Everybody is career-minded on Twitch. Everybody is clout-minded on Twitch. And that is why Twitch politics is such bullshit.
Europe from all these, you know, migrants.
Even though it started off pretty good.
And whatnot. And can you not see how this...
Dude, come to one of my Twitch streams sometime if you want to see a bot brigade, okay? I'm getting massively fucking hit by just, like, harassment, and like they've gone after my donors, people that give money. If they find out who they are, they'll harass them. My mods, they'll harass them. They'll impersonate them. They'll set up an account that looks like one of my mods and goes around and sexually harasses people. And like, oh, nocommentchick, your mods are yikes. They sexual harass people. No, the people that hate my guts are yikes as fuck. And like the thing is, it's not really that hard to figure out who it is. I think everybody who has, you know, half a brain on that in my chat knows who's fucking doing this to us, but because, you know, unless she straight up says it on stream, there's no proof, there's not a lot we can do.
It's just so obviously false compared with America. The funny thing about this is, you know, from some of the things I've seen over the past few days, some people get the impression that I'm some kind of white knight for black people, and the general point is I'm not obsessed with it like many folks come across as. This same obsession that I see, I can only really compare it to back when anti-feminists in the day were obsessed with this archetype of the angry misandrist. Now, when you go...
And chat, as we all know, that lady's based. That's my Aunt Red, okay? And she's based as fuck. Like, the actual person, this photograph is from a men's rights activist conference, right? And she came and she argued with some of the MRAs there, right? And she was based as fuck. She fucking dunked on those MRAs, right? And people act like, you know, she was like this, like, feminism, you know, right? And she was just based. That was her only. That was Big Red. Listen, Big Red did nothing wrong, okay? Big Red did nothing wrong.
Go back and look at a lot of that stuff and all the points made by Sarkeesian and Watanabe and Watson.
Is that Small Blue?
They're fairly tame.
Hey, listen, Small Blue's about to become a VTuber. Look forward to that, okay? Don't worry. Blue hair Irene has not gone anywhere. She is just transferred from the real world to the wired.
Because all this was just a load of pedantic nitpickery at the time.
Nitpickery.
It was spurred on by
God.
greater profits and clout. You know, there was a TikTok some time ago where some teenager was literally like, you know, white people, just so you're aware, you enslaved my people, and there was some hard...
Bad Buddy is racist and transphobic. So Twitch Politics official, I'm wondering, do you understand the conjugation of English verbs? Because, like, right, is racist, that means present moment, present time, present day, right? Look at that. Look at how fucking fragile these bitch babies at Twitch Politics are. They come to my YouTube stream. It's not enough that you assholes are doing watch parties of me in your fucking Discord. And yes, I know about that shit. It's not bad enough that you assholes are doing that shit. It's not bad enough that you are organizing harassment against me. You gotta come over here to YouTube and fucking Karen me while I'm trying to watch Big Red. I'm just trying to watch Big Red, okay? That's all I'm doing. It's completely innocent. We're just watching Big Red. Your assholes are so fucking fragile. Look at that shit.
Waddy guy responded by going, "Oi, just so you know, my family's from Scandinavia. I never lived in America. I didn't enslave anyone." Then why are you so angry then?
What? Listen, I want you to notice that is the Twitch Politics official channel, okay? That is who I was talking about. They came in here in their main fucking account to fucking Karen me. Listen, Twitch Politics official, I don't come to your server and slap the N-word out of your mouth, okay? I don't come to your server and slap the fucking T-slur out of your mouth, okay?
Why are you so obsessed? Are people of color coming to kill you? Get a grip. Same thing with this no-names woke segregationism. It's not. Segregation was literally, you are nothing. You're an underclass.
I'm not kidding. They hate my guts. I am probably one of the most harassed streamers on Twitch right now, and they're letting it go on. I don't think that everybody in there, I'm not accusing everybody in there of being involved with it, but like enough of people, like listen, Twitch Politics, there's people in your server that know what's going on. You know what's fucking going on. You're not calling it out. You're complicit in that shit, okay?
You're not even fully human. You're a slave with extra privileges. No Name's literally just saying, stop being Steve Buscemi. You know, how do you do, fellow blacks? Actually,
we might not have all the receipts, but we have enough receipts to know where the general direction that the harassment's coming from, all right? And if you're not over there calling it out and exposing the people that are doing it, you're just as complicit as the rest of them.
Please sort yourself out. Work in your group. Get rid of the racism inherent to your groups, and there is a lot of racism. Believe me. This isn't a controversial opinion. It's only controversial because you've accepted a very diluted, superficial view of racism that suits your interests. Of course, a lot of us don't really want to talk about this stuff because we're scared of being...
Chat, if you value somebody that's willing to stand up, that is the Little Clout Network. That is the YouTube channel of the Clout Network over on Twitch. That is what is making Twitch politics slide to the right. They call themselves Twitch politics, right? It's not an official Twitch anything, right? It's a bunch of right-wingers that started a social group that a bunch of dumb fuck, useless ass, fake leftists decided to join and basically lent their clout to, right? Lent their clout to these no-name streamers that nobody fucking wants to watch, right? That have nothing going for them, but they now have an intellectual capture of some pretty big streamers on Twitch because they're just like, they're led around by their nose and they're like, oh, okay, the other left-wingers are on here too. I guess I'll be on here, right? They don't fucking realize what's going on. They are captured. They are being used. They are the tools of the right wing on Twitch, right? And that is who runs that server, right? And it's pretty similar to another politics Discord that I won't mention right now. Some of the same people. Definitely the same network.
I've said the stuff I've seen over the past few days. Oh,
and get ready to get called the fuck out, you sussy bakas, because I know what you're up to.
You're a white knight for the black man.
Ooh, I don't appreciate it. Ooh, woo.
Oh, you'll be the most enlightened on the mask, right? Wow. Wow. Okay, this is coming from so-called leftists. Okay, here's the big one. Nation of Islam. What more shall I say? Sexist, homophobic, conspiratorial, opportunistic, anti-Semitic, occult? Yep, all true. All true. I denounce all of that. Okay? You can have that discussion from that standpoint. Go for it. You're probably right. And I'd agree with you. It is a problem. All these things are problems. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter what I say, does it? The worst reactionary black nationalism serves black people's self-determination. The best reactionary white nationalism serves white supremacy. Is that too difficult for people to understand? But no, of course, Nation of Islam bad. Haha, own next. I urge you to actually go back to that video, show me any time where I actually defended the Nation of Islam. On the same point, this one is very familiar to me. The he was bad until his final year argument. Yeah, I can't say that I'm not guilty of that one. Tell me again, really, when we go through all this, tell me again that we're not just taking on black people and black people's thought once it just becomes ever so slightly placable to white audiences. Okay, Malcolm X is one. Don't even get me started on the Black Panther Party. Anybody can say that they love the Black Panther Party these days. Anyone. It has gone from being the, vanguard of the black nation for socialism into the party of Rainbow Coalition and Free Breakfast. That's literally it. What a bastardization of such a great movement for black people. Rainbow Coalition and Free Breakfast. Walter Jr. would be proud. This is a good comment.
Oh my god, Walter, the Breaking Bad reference, right?
Because, of course, black people are not indigenous either, right? Well, within colonial discourse, I believe that they fit into the category of arrivant. That's people who are forced to come because of sanctions by that country, war by that country, being brought against their will by that country, those sort of things. So black, Latin, Iraqi, etc., arrivant. Although, there is some debate. You can look into that.
Okay, so this is kind of what came up during the Dr. Heem debate.
That is something that is overlooked.
The actual ambush debate. Chat, I was accused of an ambush debate because of some lack of coordination on my part in terms of not thinking that Dylan was interested in debating me because he had too much on his plate life-wise, and then realizing at the last minute that no, he was going to take me up on my challenge, right? Even though I gave him a week, I was like, listen, like I called you out, but it was probably the wrong week to do it. You can take a rain check on that. And he's like, oh no, I'm going to come on. And so I'm like trying to deal. Okay, I got a panel and I'm going to deal with Dylan. And there was like lack of coordination on my part about that. They typified this as a ambush, right? Listen, if I wasn't going to do an ambush, it'd be a lot more coordinated. It'd be a lot more like the Dr. Heem debate, right?
Booked in this common settle it
where I literally tell the person that they are coming on to talk about something completely different, and then I ambush them with some, something that they're just not prepared to deal with. And
it's binary.
Didn't sign on to deal with, and don't think that is a good idea to talk about in the context of a debate. That's what she was forced into. She was supposed to come on and have a chat, have a talk with somebody who was a little bit more sympathetic than Vaush, and instead she just got ambushed.
And some people might say, oh, well, you know, not all black people came against that. Well, it doesn't matter.
Wait, which Dr. K?
How does African culture in America manifest itself in comparison to white culture? Why is that? Does centuries of oppression have something to do with it? I didn't think I'd have to go over this one either, but apparently so. Vaush isn't a paedophile or a defender. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt on that, alright? Here's the thing that you're overlooking. If your argument ends up with you having to reach that far, with all the very obvious other differences involved, then maybe you should rethink your stance and how literally leaning on this Sonic meme all the time just absolves you of any further discussion. You can't really affect the distributors of what you consume, sure, but you can affect the content of what you consume, and that does make a real-world tangible difference.
Oh, wow.
You can watch the rest of it.
Making a vegan argument
This
there.
discussion there, you know, he just reaches and literally equivocates on any possible rung, not just that one, many other interviews.
Just so you know, though, the vegan that Vaush was debating against, that was Vegan Gains. I would not call that guy representative of the vegan movement at large, right? He's a kind of a right-wing anti-SJW dude, last I checked. So yeah, please don't, you know, associate Vegan Gains too strongly with the vegan movement. Like, not all vegans are like that. There are some, you know, real cringe vegans. There's some problematic vegans, and there's some based vegans too. Okay.
You know,
just like any other group, it's a mixed bag.
Oh, if someone was on the pavement homeless, would you impugn yourself for not giving them money? Owned. Next. This is what happens when you're doing consistency for consistency's sake. Stop doing it. You're literally giving nothing of value. Instead that I'm not interested in debating Vaush. No, I'm not. Look, if people are interested in having discussions, I'm going to have them. I'm not just going to not bother, you know, talking about this to anyone and say, no, case closed, I'm right, whatever. Okay, but I'm not going to waste my time with somebody who argues like this. Now, what about that James Baldwin debate, so to speak? Because I knew that I would get people saying this. Okay, I was actually tempted to put words over the top of the speech, but I just...
Right-wing SJW? What a time to be alive. Wait, are you talking about Vegan Gains?
Felt it would ruin the whole flow of it. If
Vegan Gains is just a weird champ. I don't even know how to explain. Listen, I used to watch vegan videos, right? And Vegan Gains was like somebody that at first was kind of okay, but like as he went on, I found out more and more about the dude and like really didn't like him. We call them MAGA. Vaush debates those who he can manipulate the perception of their use. Yeah. That's what he does. That's what he does. He'll find an issue where the conventional wisdom is like so divorced from the actual nuanced, like, you know, reality of the situation, right? And he'll weird champ the conventional wisdom, and a lot of people will just be like, based, right? You know, because they're like, that's all they know, that's all they got is conventional wisdom, right? Generally, conventional wisdom is not something that you should rely on. If that is what your debate comes down to, you might win the debate. You likely will win the debate, but you're going to do so at the expense of the truth. I don't want to win anything at the expense of the truth. I want to learn from a debate that I have where I'm not on the side of the truth and be able to come closer to that, right? Instead of like, you know, getting that W, that hollow theoric victory that enables your worst takes, that enables your worst tendencies, right?
Your takeaway is, oh, it's a debate. Dave said debate is stupid. Ha ha. Oh, he said we need each other. Dave said we don't need each other. Ha ha ha. You are proving the point. The speech is so much more than just a, oh, well, I guess the answer is an abstract, we need each other. Next. Go and watch it. Watch it a few times. It took me quite a while to fully understand it. You know, James Baldwin has this very sort of Shakespearean way of speaking, you know, and can be a little bit, you know, difficult to understand at first, but when you get it, it is...
Yeah, I mean, he's an author.
Poetry in
motion. He's a
motion.
great author, actually.
Is this a debate? Well, it might well be a debate. Oddly, though, hardly anyone seems to care who Baldwin's opponent is in this debate. They barely even remember him. They barely even listen to his side of it. Okay, it's mostly just James Baldwin.
Vaush's conventional wisdom is him parroting belligerently from his college courses. Yeah, I don't even know. I feel like his professors would take him to task on some of these things.
If anything, it's very much a speech.
I would hope so, right?
Made 50 years ago prior to, as I said, this modern obsession with internet debate culture. But heavens no, you know, of course it's a debate. These two things are ontologically the exact same thing as each other. Ha ha, owned. Next. When someone's trying to make a point, right, stop immediately scanning around for some cherry-picked gotcha all of the time. Because when you do that, the meat of your analysis is really no better than a Thunderfoot video.
Most recently, Double Dragon Neon in 2012 reintroduced new gamers to this regressive crap yet again, this time in full HD.
Without mentioning that the game Double Dragon Neon ends like this.
One day to antagonize you, Billy and Jimmy!
Oh, right in the balls.
The pattern of presenting women as fundamentally weak, ineffective, or ultimately...
Yeah, yes, I was a sociology major, and Vaush doesn't seem to reflect anything I learned in my classes.
...incapable.
Feminism debunk, people. Now, finally, I got a lot of these comments. VDS.
Vaush bad.
Which,
What
if
can
you
I
don't
say?
know, stands for Vaush Derangement Syndrome. Basically, what people say to folks who have a dislike of Vaush,
CBT.
petty, or steal. Now, look, if you were to say that you found someone who is apparently always correct, who's basically infallible, whose detractors are always uncharitable, I would say you were lying. You'd expect someone to make errors, okay, to be wrong sometimes. But in the Vaushverse, everything is forgivable, except the people he's talking to. They're always wrong. If you are accusing all those who dislike Vaush many times very validly, and just throw them into this pathology that you can just write them off, then you are literally engaging in cult behavior. I'm not gonna lie. And frankly, you could easily argue that the responses that I've seen to all this discussion, you know, you could consider this minoritized
I'm a literature major. Can I contest his literary references? Sure.
derangement syndrome. Because it's literally the same sanctimonious pearl clutching at any possible criticism that you claim. If you throw the ball at me, or Lua, or John the Duncan, with genocide supporter, or defender of the Nation of Islam, you are literally just engaging in that bile for which you criticize others of doing to you and your sacred cows. Now, for all those not so great comments that I got, I did get this comment by Jack Neeson, and this is an essay by Lorenzo Irwin called The Progressive Plantation. He's an ex-Panther, by the way, and I must say, when I was reading this, I wish I'd been shown this before because it is damning. It is damning. I honestly think that every white socialist needs to read this. I cannot recommend this enough. Literally everything I've been thinking about, I've been talking about Ian,
I'm gonna check
it's
that out.
here. If you've any misunderstandings, if you still don't get the point at hand after going over this,
in chat.
if you still deny it, if you still think it's bad optics, I don't know what to say, but honestly, give it a read. The Progressive Plantation by Lorenzo Camboa Irvin. That's all for now, folks. I don't really want to take
And
any
listen.
more time or space up on this topic. See ya.
Okay. So yeah, there.
I'm gonna review.
There we go. So that is the addendum to BadMouse's video. Chat, I wanted to explain something really quickly. Okay. So stick around. Okay. So if you look on my Twitter right now, it's Oracle of Maya. If you look on my Twitch, it's Oracle of Maya. Is this a rebrand? It wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to be a Halloween costume. Okay. So the idea is, because I'm playing through Persona 2, that I was going to rebrand as Maya Maiden, right? The Maya Maiden is the, sacrificial, like they're trying to sacrifice Maya Mono in the game, right? To bring about, I don't know, somehow they can get eternal life by sacrificing her or something like that. We haven't really figured it out yet, but I rebranded to Oracle of Maya because I was I'm pretty into that game. I'm almost done with it. I think there's 4 or 5 shrines left to do. I think I have to do a bunch of shrines, right? To get through the game. So there's still a lot of gameplay left, but we're getting down to we saw Hitler in the game last night. We saw Hitler. So I just wanted to explain this to you. Oracle of Maya is Oracle_of_Maya is my Twitch at. Oracle_of_Maya is spelled MAIA is my Twitter at, right? I'm still keeping nocommentchick on YouTube, right? And I'll probably revert I'll probably revert things after Halloween. The problem is, chat, and I just found this out before I realized it, right? I thought you could just switch your ad on Twitch and switch it right back. You gotta wait 2 months. You gotta wait 2 months. So Halloween is 2 months this year. Halloween is going to be 2 months for me because I'm stuck as Oracle of Maya for a little bit longer. But check me out. I'll be playing this game tonight. We're going to be getting further. We finally beat Joker and Angel Joker, and that means we got June back. We got June. We got our childhood friend back. Our childhood friend who was turned into the Joker by the fact that he witnessed what he thought was the murder of his big sis. But it turns out that Maya had more tricks up her sleeve, right? And she got out of the fire in the shrine. So then that's why she's here, right? So yeah, we're gonna join Maya and Tetsuya for their further adventures of trying to take on. Now they're taking on Hitler, right? Because they beat the Joker, and I guess Hitler is next. I don't know, chat. I don't know. But that's pretty scary. Hitler's got a bunch of Nazis with mechs. They're called the Knights of the Holy Lance. The lances can bind your persona, so they can go like, psh, and you can't use your persona, right? And apparently there's one of those knights that has a really nasty lance that got used to kill Jesus or something. So. Yeah, you gotta love it. Here's what I love about like Japanese like media, about anime and gaming in particular. They'll utilize stuff that like like Christianity is like the religion that I grew up in. They'll utilize stuff from that like in the plots as like lore, as mythology. So it's like it's pretty interesting actually. But yeah. That'll be later tonight on Twitch. So thank you everybody for being here. Much love. I want you to understand, yeah, like that's my rebrand. If you get anything from like I will not DM you. Okay? Just spoiler, okay? If somebody's DMing you and it looks like me, it's not me. It's a troll, okay? They're going to probably say the N-word or some horrible shit. And they want you to think it's me. That's the idea. That's the kind of harassment I'm getting on Twitch right now, right? From some very sussy bakas that aren't nearly as good at covering their tracks as they think. So they better be careful, or else they're going to reveal themselves. And then what are they going to do, right? But yeah, the Spear of Longinus. Yeah, Saint. Hey, Totsurun, can you explain to me why is Longinus a saint? Longinus was the Roman century that like had the spear that stabbed like Jesus, right? Why is he a saint? Anybody know? Anybody know? Like, listen, I grew up in Christianity. I still don't understand this shit. Like, there's apparently more lore to Christianity than I realized. But I got anime and video games to teach me that lore apparently. Anybody know why he's a saint? He's a saint because Jesus forgave him. Oh, okay. Okay. All right, well, chat. Make sure to spit truth from the heart. Okay? No matter what kind of threats they bring against you. Make sure to stand up for each other. Make sure to be there for each other. Make sure to live solidarity. Don't just speak it. Don't just think about it. Live that, okay? And we can bring about a whole new world. You can change the way that you live. You have the power. You have a lot more power than capitalism gives you credit for. Don't get sucked into capitalist realism. Don't get sucked into the liberal mind prism. Don't get sucked into electoral politics, okay? And don't get sucked into the fake online left, okay? Because there's a lot of people out there that are it's just a fucking career for them. This is so much more for me, and it's actually not very good as a career. It is not working out very well for me. But chat, it's where my passion is, and it's what I'm going to keep doing as long as there's a need to do that. I love you so much, and you mean a lot to me, okay? See you over on Twitch.